Welcome to the,
I don't know.
hey folks, okay,
Maybe
so
that's enough.
calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of September 27th, 2017. Will the council members introduce yourselves, please?
Dan Haggerty.
Chris Johnson.
Lisa Ketchum.
Dave Olson.
Claire Touton.
Brian Kwan.
The first item on our agenda is the Board of Supervisors report, and we have Ellie Dolman here tonight, Supervisor Horsley's aide.
All right, good evening, everyone. Midcoast Community Council, Midcoast residents. My name is Ellie Dolman. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Horsley to provide a few updates. So I'll just begin with a few items from recent meetings. At the Board of Supervisors meeting this past Tuesday, the board approved the mobile home park zoning ordinance countywide, and also requested that staff come back with a recommendation for an amendment that would address the clarification of the height definition of how the height is determined, as well as the specific maximum height that's allowed in the coast side. And then the second item was from the Planning Commission meeting today. The La Costanera restaurant came before the Planning Commission, and they were approved, or their use permit legalizing the use of their lower patio, installation of public access improvements surrounding the restaurant, some direct path lighting around the parking lot, construction of new roofing, and a number of things. They were approved for a 5-year use permit with annual reviews by staff to ensure compliance. So just wanted to update you on that. And also Supervisor Horsley asked me to let you know that the county is working with the state on the Martins Beach acquisition, and the county's allocated $1 million to support the efforts in providing public access at that location. So that's on that. And then I also have an update on, some of you may have heard of the Princeton street end improvement projects that the county's been working on. Specifically, the first place we've been focused is the Broadway street end, which is the first one, as you're driving into Princeton. And installation of 2 benches and wayfinding signage is actually going to begin towards the end of this week and be completed over the next 2 weeks. And I brought just a picture of the wooden benches that County Parks designed that they tried to match like the benches from the GGNRA park that your council suggested that we go with. So really excited to see these go in, and we just set a date for kind of a ribbon cutting celebration for that work. So mark your calendars if you'd like to join us. It would be Wednesday, October 18th at 11 a.m. But I'll be sharing some more information on that soon. And 2 other events that are upcoming. One is Quarry Park and Marauda Surf master planning effort. They've had, I think, 3 community meetings already, but there's a 4th that's scheduled for Tuesday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. at El Granada Elementary School. So if you're interested, that's the San Mateo County Parks Department that's heading that effort, and I'll leave a flyer here with the MCC. And then the last event that I just wanted to announce is San Mateo County's 9th Annual Historical Tourism Conference. Supervisor Carol Broom is spearheading this effort. It seems like it'll be a pretty interesting event with some keynote speakers. It's happening Friday, October 20th, if you're interested at all in the history of tourism in San Mateo County. And that's all. Those are all the updates that I have for you this evening. Unless there's any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
If they're having a ribbon cutting on Broadway on the 18th of October, does that mean everything's going to be done by then?
Yes, so DPW informed me that they're going to begin installation of the benches and moving the guardrail back and putting in the signage, I think the end of this week, and then they expect to be completed, I think, no later than October 16th.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, could you show us the picture of the bench again, please, and what material is?
It's made out of wood. I'm not sure what specific type of wood. I could follow up with Parks on that. But yeah, it's, they did their best to create, very similar to the bench design that was, that your council directed us to install, and I think they also did some work to just make sure that it's reinforced and gonna last for the longest amount of time possible. So, really looking forward to that.
And how many are being installed?
There will be 2 benches, one informational sign that'll have some history about the piers that used to exist in the harbor there, and then also the guardrail that is currently there will be moved kind of inland away from the bluff edge to allow space to kind of protect the bench pedestrian space from the vehicular area at the end of the street.
Okay, and, thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys can keep that.
Okay.
Any more questions for Ellie?
I have, yeah, on the Martin's Beach, you said that the county is gonna be, I'm sorry.
Contributing, I think they've allocated $1 million to, towards the effort around Martin's Beach acquisition of kind of public access to the beach.
Do you know-
That's still in process, I believe. It's not a done deal at this point, but
So he paid approximately a little over 30 million for the property, and I heard, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard overall, the state, he's gonna be receiving about the same amount of money for access?
yeah, I'm not sure of the details. I can get some more information and shoot you an
So
email.
essentially, he's gonna get the property for free?
I'm not familiar with the details, but I can
Okay.
find out some more information and send it your way.
Anybody in the public have questions for oh, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Of course. Do you have any updates for the other improvements by Princeton, other street end improvements, or?
We don't have any updates at this moment, but just for, I don't know if any of you were here the last time I provided an update. So we are looking at the next kind of couple street ends. I believe the next after Broadway, I believe it's Columbia, and then I want to say Vassar, and then West Point. So we're looking at the next 3 street ends to see what sort of access improvements could be made. In the Plan Princeton document, it identifies the next 3 street ends after Broadway as beach access opportunities. And so we're working with Public Works and the Parks Department to see what sort of improvements might be made to ease access. I think the very last street end at West Point is pretty flat already, more or less, but the 2 before that do kind of have a little bit of a drop from where the street ends and where the actual beach sits. So I will get back to you with more information.
Do you have a question for Ellie, or did you want, okay.
All right, more of a comment, but there are 2 lawsuits about Martin Beach that are ongoing, and the smart money is saying.
Can you, if you have a comment, you really need to come up to the microphone. So thanks, Ellie.
I'm Harvey Rohrback. I serve on the Half Moon Bay City Council, but my question for Ellie, or comment, is it's my understanding that there are 2 lawsuits in progress about the Martins Beach issue, and Smart Money is saying that most likely the whole issue, because it involves land use rights, is going to end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. So don't expect any solution in the reasonably near future. But it's certainly worth following what's going on, because it's really a travesty.
As long as you're there, you want to give your own.
Sure. So greetings from your neighbors to the south. I have a couple of quick items. The Half Moon Bay City Council has decided that the city will go 100% green energy with the Peninsula Clean Energy organization, and anybody who has already signed up as an individual for Echo 100, which is 100% renewable, which costs about 2% more than PG&E production rates, I'll be glad to give you a sticker if you, either if you've done it already or you're intending to do it, because this is a really good thing, and it'll help the environment significantly. I'm sure a lot of you are interested in the question about cannabis. We had a community meeting a few weeks ago. We had over 100 people show up and express lots and lots of differing ideas, opinions, pro, contrary. There was a real robust discussion. And based on the fact that the community is really involved in this and it's an important decision, the council has decided to, first of all, postpone the vote on the proposed ordinance, to produce a draft ordinance in the reasonably near future, and have another community meeting, and there should be at least a month between the time that the proposed ordinance is available to the public to decide, see what we're planning to do, and the actual vote on the first reading. So we understand how important this decision is. We would like to have input from the community, but we also think we have to move ahead with an ordinance. I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Wait, I have a question.
Jess?
So do you have any updates on the lawsuit regarding the SAM? Excuse me, regarding the sewer.
Yeah, no, it's, unfortunately, I think that's only been discussed in closed session, and I can't talk about that.
I understand.
Harvey, who was
Yeah.
the seller of 555 Kelly Street?
It's a trust that Barbara of Barbara Fish Trap was one of the people who are in that trust.
Is it a REIT? A real estate investment trust, or?
No, I don't believe, I think it's a family trust. But I'm reasonably sure what I just said.
For those who are wondering, the city is proposing to buy that. It's adjacent to the community center.
Any more questions for Harvey?
Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, Chair Ketchum, members of the Community Council. My name is Steve McGraw, and I'm the General Manager for the San Mateo County Harbor District, as you know, and I periodically stop in and give you a little update on what we're up to down in the Harbor District. A couple of items that have been in the news, the Cartel and Mavericks surf competition. There's a likelihood, there's a possibility that sale will close next week, and then we'll find out more. But as you know, this is in the hands of the bankruptcy court, and we don't have a lot of say on that. We did, last week, the board approved the hiring of a consultant, Martin Roche, who's done some work. I know he's done some work, I believe, for the Montera Water and Sanitary District and others. He's going to be helping us develop our strategic plan. We had an effort on that in 2013-14 that never came to fruition, so we're looking forward very much to scoping that project out and getting going on what we have termed a very public, and I mean a very robust public engagement effort as we develop our strategic plan. West Trail, we're moving forward with that and looking at a final project that will encompass not just the emergency repair that we completed in 2016, but also going further out and using a combination of a soil nail wall with sculptured rock and beach nourishment to protect the trail. Dredging, we're working on two fronts there. One, small project to move forward very quickly as we can, given the regulatory environment, for clearing the sand that shoaled in at the boat launch ramp, a result of the excessive storms that we had. And then also we're working on the larger project for the surface beach nourishment. We think that is likely to be a 75,000 cubic yard project. To give you a perspective on that, I was at a meeting last week where I had to figure out how to convey how much that is. It's a football field 45 feet deep in sand. And that's a pilot project. We hope to be moving forward with that project middle to late next year. Oyster Point Marine, I know, is of less concern, but the major project that is scheduled for over there is likely to break ground in the middle of next month. The Lady Washington is going to be visiting the harbor again in the middle of October for a couple of weeks, public tours, school groups, all of that sort of stuff. Come on down to Pillar Point Harbor and see that event. And I'd also like to congratulate our city to the south on Peninsula Clean Energy. And it's not often we get to do something like this, but the Harbor District was out in front on this one, and we adopted Peninsula Clean Energy in, I think it was June. So hopefully we can get the coast side going 100% renewable. I'll happily answer any questions.
On the dredging for the launch ramp, I understand from the Beach Replenishment Committee meeting that that the immediate need is to remove 1,500 cubic yards of prime coarse beach nourishment material, and you don't have the permits to put that on a beach, and you're running out of opportunities to places to store it temporarily and are considering sending it away, never to be retrieved, and I hope you have better news than that.
We are in active discussions with the county about possible use of a little piece of land at the airport.
So that might happen? Yeah, I was,
When we describe these projects, we have to list every eventuality. And
Okay.
yes, I mean, up to and including paying to truck it down to Ox Mountain.
well, I
I
can't get my head around that.
I
really
absolutely
can't.
understand, Chair Ketchum.
And
Absolutely understand.
as I pointed out to the committee, the last emergency dredging of the launch ramp was in this condition, and it was like that for more than a year, and nobody died. Just saying. This is just my opinion, sorry, but, Dave.
I have one quick question. Any update on the Romeo Pier removal process?
The board awarded a contract to the Dutra Group, one of the larger construction groups, especially in marine construction, dredging in the Bay Area and possibly actually around the world. They awarded that contract. The contract amount in the bid was for $2.7 million, $1.2 million more than we budgeted. Large part of that was due to how busy they are and how they were going to have to bring in equipment. We negotiated with them. If we can wait until early in the new year, they've agreed to reduce the price quite considerably. So we're looking at that project going forward early in the new year, but all permits are in place.
You know, you've talked before about how unpredictable sand location is, and I don't expect that you can answer this, but it looks to me like there's more sand on Surfers Beach now than there has been in a long time. I presume that's going to go away in the winter. So
Sand moves, it comes in and it
educate
goes
me.
out. What we're hoping for in the pilot project is that we're putting enough sand there so that in the 2 or 3 year monitoring program that we'll be doing afterwards, we'll be able to tell, is it having an effect or is it just going to get washed away in the next winter? What we don't know is where that sort of tipping point might be on how much sand it takes to stabilize it. If you put a 10-pound bucket of sand on there, it's going to disappear. If you put 500,000 yards of sand on there, it's probably going to stay for a while. Where is that tipping point? That's what we're going to find out in the 75,000-yard project.
Okay.
Any more questions for Steve?
Yeah, I have, so on that sand, 75,000 cubic yards. What's the estimated, it's available reasonably to dredge? I mean, how much, what percentage of the bank?
Very
taken?
good question, good question. When the Army Corps did their study and eventually determined that the cost benefit wasn't there for them to perform the project, they estimated 2 projects. One was at 150,000 cubic yards and one was at 250,000 cubic yards. So we estimate that on the inside of the breakwater right now, there's at least 250,000 cubic yards that we could take out of there and for beneficial reuse. That doesn't mean to say that there isn't a lot more sand available, that we've got plenty of uses for that, whether that be at the West Trail, whether that be at the Princeton shoreline. But right now we're focused there, but we believe that we're taking a portion, but not anywhere near the entire amount that's available on the inside.
Thank you.
Anyone in the public have questions for Steve?
I just was curious in the Romero Pier project, I mean, what is that?
With the demolition of the Romeo Pier, the Green Pier.
Okay.
Yeah. sad to say, it is
Yeah, it's-
past its useful life.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other government agency people here that want to report? Okay, and announcements from the council. Can I just say that the MCC has a vacancy, and it's to complete a term ending in December 2020. Application deadline is October 20th for appointment by the Board of Supervisors. And the information on how to apply is on the MCC website. That's midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. And then what we plan to do is interview the applicants on October 25th here and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for the appointment. Any other
I have
announcements?
an announcement. Tomorrow night in the same room at 7 p.m., Granada Community and Sanitary Districts Park Advisory Committee will be meeting. They'll be considering a number of proposals, including pump track, the San Mateo County agreement for partial maintenance, and a number of other projects. So if you're interested in parks in this district, show up at that. And they are also looking for people who are interested in serving on that. I knew of one vacancy. Another council member told me they're now up to 3 vacancies out of 7. So if you're interested in serving on that park advisory committee, contact Julia Camito, the assistant general manager of the district.
Anybody else, council members? Okay, next on the agenda is public comment for any items not on the agenda. I don't have any speaker slips. Does anybody wish to speak?
I would like to.
Okay, as we go forward through the meeting, if you guys can fill out speaker slips if you want to speak on an item. Well, you got to hand them in too.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to do it now, but do it so that it helps the secretary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, members of the board and the community. My name is Paul Kelsch. I'm a resident of El Granada, and I'm on the Parks Advisory Committee for the Granada Community Services District. And I'm just here to address the board and the public in general, just to mainly, I'm here actually as a member of the community, though. I'm not here on the purposes of the committee, but just as a member of the community, just to highlight our need for active recreation on the coast, as far as stuff that would be suitable for children in the age of like 10, 16, 17 years old, that age where they tend to, not have so much going for them on typical playgrounds and whatnot. And, maybe you have organized sports, but stuff that's a little more free-flowing and just readily available at any time. So that's like been a big goal of a lot of us for the PAC, and I just want to sort of boost that signal. And this ties into what Dave mentioned just a minute ago about this Quarry Park pump track. And a bicycle pump track is definitely something that falls in that category of active recreation, and it's something that's been worked for a number of years, and then I got involved 2 years ago, and we've been working at it, and we've had volunteers that are willing to, we have a track designer volunteer, we have builders and materials that are willing to be donated. We just needed the space. Well, now in working with those workshops at the Quarry Park meetings that we've had 3 already, there's been a lot of support for it, and the county is willing to do this at Quarry Park. They have it on all 3 of their different proposals. So basically, now we have the space, and what we need really is just general community support for this project. And I should have brought some pictures of bicycle pump tracks, but they can look really nice. They can blend in really well with the landscape, and they can, you can plant trees in them. There's one in Santa Cruz that goes through old growth redwoods and under bay leaves. It's beautiful. So I really feel it'd be an asset to the community. It would build the community as far as young children being able to, kind of venture out a little bit on their own, get a feel, start making, community of their own, and engaging in activities, and starting to like step out in the world a little bit, but also be, in a safe place within the neighborhood that they can bike to on their own. and just generally have a good time and get exercise. It's a real asset for parents, for moms, for dads, boys, girls, children on the age of like a running bike, like what's called a strider, can use them. It's similar to like a rolling, like a roller coaster with tight turns. Or older kids can generate more speed. But everyone I've been to, there's never been, traffic jams or problems, and, it's never been a real safety issue. So anyway, I'm all for it, and I just want to look for general support, but also just to boost the signal of the PAC in the Granada district now, how we are starting to get going on planning stuff, and, we are looking for new members for the advisory committee, and I highly encourage people to apply and, be supportive of active recreation. We have that need. We're supportive. I support what's known as passive recreation too, but I do feel, we have the beach, we have GGNRA, we have the bluffs, we have the coastal trail. We have a lot of, relaxing opportunity to relax and relate in the outdoors. I feel there's this need in that age group, in that adolescent age group to really do something, do a couple things. So I think that might be about all I wanted to say. There is that one more Quarry Park workshop on Tuesday and the meeting tomorrow night. The agenda looks really good for tomorrow night, and I think things are going to start happening. So stuff to look forward to. Okay, great.
That meeting is right here.
Yes, it is in this room.
Thank you.
Same time.
Thanks, Paul.
Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Next on the agenda is consent, and then we're going to pull 3B and just approve minutes for August 23 and appointment of Dan Haggerty as the new MCC treasurer. Do I have a motion?
I put forward a motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our regular agenda. First up is a presentation on emergency preparedness on the coast side by OES Coastside Emergency Services Coordinator Chad Woodburn.
All right, I'm Chad Woodburn. I want to thank you for letting me come in and speak to you today. I've been in the position since March, and I haven't made it out here, so this is my first time attending the meeting. And like I said, I want to say thank you. And I'm just going to give a little presentation on kind of what's been going on, a little history about myself, and then the future, kind of where we're looking to go in the next year or so. This is the breakdown. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the breakdown of OES. This is kind of complicated, but it gets a lot more complicated when you add in the Emergency Service Bureau and countywide security. But there's six emergency services coordinators within the county. The two that are in San Carlos and Millbrae, John Parkin and Bill Riley, are part-time. They were hired on after I came in. And for those of you that have been around, Stephanie Murdy, the OES supervisor there in the middle, she replaced Don Matei. I know some people were familiar with Don Matei, and I replaced Nick Gattuso. And then Lieutenant William Fogarty is our OES director there at the top. And I'm not sure who was before him, but he was in here last year. So Lieutenant Fogarty, Stephanie, and myself, and John Parkin and Bill Riley are all new into the organization. A little bit about me. As I stated, I started in March of 2017. My role is the Coastside Emergency Services Coordinator. It gets a little complicated with my role as well because I'm split between Half Moon Bay. Part of my salary is paid by the city of Half Moon Bay, and the other part's paid by the county. My territory goes from the tunnel to the Santa Cruz border and then to Skyline. In addition to that, I have as you see, I have an extensive military background, so I have a pretty good focus on the terrorism side of things. So I work on the other side of the hill for terrorism type related activities as well. Spent 21 years in the military. The majority of that was medical related. I was a combat medic for 14 years. I'm a medical service corps officer today. And then prior to that, I was with special operations as a paratrooper and did all kinds of different things. My prior work experience, I'll go back to that. Most of the last 5 to 7 years has been working in a hospital in the emergency room. And then prior to that, I worked for the National Nuclear Security Administration building nuclear weapons components. So I've had a vast variety of things going on with me. My education, I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and a bachelor's degree in psychology. I did attend medical school, didn't finish that, so I'm working on a graduate degree in Homeland Security and Public Health Preparedness through Penn State University. And one of the most important things for this position when OES hired and interviewed is that I'm a coastal resident. I live in Montara. My family's in Montara, so it's, I have a vested interest in keeping this community safe. And, I grew up in a small town outside of Kansas City, so I understand the rural. I call it rural, even though it's busy here compared to what I grew up with. The rural community and the tightness and how everybody kind of relies on everyone. I understand that, so I fit right in here, I believe, and looking forward to continuing on. Moving on, so continuing education through the office and through my position. In the last 6 months, I've done quite a few different workshops and courses. This is just a list of them. Training and exercise through the California Office of Emergency Services. They kind of coordinate statewide training, and we kind of had input on what kind of training we would like to see within the next year. Critical decision making for complex coordinated attacks. Once again, it's kind of terrorism related, but it also deals with active shooter type situations. So it was beneficial to understand the process and how things work throughout the state. I am a terrorism liaison, a basic terrorism liaison. They call it officer, but so we can get additional information through NCRIC, which is the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center. So they communicate with federal. They're a liaison between local and federal agencies. So if there's anything significant that comes along, I know on the coast, they've had the panga boats come in back, a few years ago. So there is a little bit of concern out here, and with the recent events in Europe, when it comes to large crowds, pumpkin festival is a concern. So just things we kind of look out for and keep our ear out for. The Central Emergency and Management Concepts course was an earthquake-based course, so it was very good. It was very knowledgeable. I have zero experience with earthquakes. I'm more about tornadoes, and flooding. So I do have the flooding aspect, but earthquakes, it's a potential threat here on the coast. A lot of the NOAA, the National Oceanic Agency, they predict, and the Geological Society project an earthquake of a magnitude of 7 or greater within the next 30 years. And some of them have even predicted up to 9 because of the lack of what type of earthquakes have happened. And these are faults that are run along skyline. So the potential's there. So it's one of those things that we're looking at. It's a low probability but high impact kind of event. And then radiological and nuclear consequence management course. Kind of just went to that because I have a nuclear background a little bit, and the radiological side and military I've worked with a little bit as well. And then with the, it was kind of good timing with the North Korean thing just to get an aspect on it. And actually I'll still be part of that because it's part of the Vigilant Guardian exercise that they're doing throughout the state. So we'll do a little bit more on that here in the future. And down at the bottom, I used to instruct CPR. I've had quite a few certifications when it comes to medical training, so the Office of Emergency Services has allowed me to get my CPR instructor course again. I go to that so that I can better prepare the community and teach CPR courses. So going to be doing some ICS 300, ICS, which is Incident Command System, just more management type stuff, and critical asset management courses coming up in the near future as well. So a little update on coastal activity. As a member, I should say, a member of the Coastside Emergency Action Program. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that. It is a community-based program where emergency preparedness and stakeholders come together and talk about anything related to emergency preparedness and any kind of activities, any kind of concerns, and just kind of get a consensus and break things down and try to move forward rather than just continually talking about it. One thing that came out of that was the Coastside Emergency Corps, trying to get that reestablished, and that is in the works. They had their first Coastside Emergency Corps meeting since I've been in the position and since December of last year when Nick Gattuso left, to talk about electing a board and getting the organization up and running and determining the mission and all of that. So their first annual meeting is going to be held in a few weeks at the Coastside EOC, and they're hopefully going to elect either an interim board or a temporary board or a board, depending on what they've decided. And one of those things is the Office of Emergency Services and myself are going to 100% support anything or any endeavor that they try to get into, and we're going to try to get them engaged in training as well. In the summer, the American Red Cross did a home fire campaign. The two that they did currently were in Half Moon Bay at Pillar Ridge and Kenyatta Cove. They installed upwards of almost 300 different smoke alarms and fire in homes. It's for a community in need. They've realized that across the U.S., a lot of the fires in mobile home parks and lower income areas had a lot of injuries and a lot of preventive things that could have been done. So they had this huge campaign, and they've donated all these. It impacted over 400 people living in these 300 some trailers. It was a very good thing. They're trying to do another one in Pescadero. That date has been yet to be determined, and I'm not sure what other locales they've looked at here, but it was something I was a part of and participated in. Storm preparation. I came in a little bit after the winter storms this year, but I was here. I moved here in October. And the storm preparation, we're getting checklists together. November 1st, we will be doing a storm presentation for the county supervisor. Once that storm preparation is approved by the San Mateo County Emergency Management Association and is delivered to the county manager, we will come out and I can give another presentation on that presentation once it's approved. And then coastside training and exercises. Well, I have a coastside training and exercise plan I'm working on, and I'm going to try to do a full scale or a functional exercise in March. I'm still reaching out to stakeholders, trying to get the Sheriff's Department, fire, CERT members, and different other entities around, hopefully the harbor, trying to get involved in exercise. The Half Moon Bay Pilots Association is going to try to get involved. So it'll be an earthquake designed exercise just to test the capability so I can see what it is, but I don't want to do it during the winter season, so that's why I push it off till March. Plus it gives me a little bit of time to prep based on the Homeland Security design, the way they have it set up. Since I've been on board, the first five I've already completed. And Silver Dragon was about 2 weeks after I started, so I limited it to a neighborhood in Half Moon Bay because they were already kind of on board, and one of the city employees had done Silver Dragon before there. So it was successful. We delivered information for mosquito abatement and different things for the health department, and it was good. Community Shield, Yellow Command, they're more terrorism type related exercises, but I was participated in those just to kind of understand EOC functioning and my role. And then Port of Redwood City, they did a tabletop exercise related to FEMA staging areas, which could be very important out here on the coast in Half Moon Bay Airport. Kind of how they have their coordinated efforts, what kind of plans they have in place, how they hand over their operations, how they prepare for them coming in, FEMA to stage in case there's a, Port Redwood City and Half Moon Bay and even the harbor, if there's a major earthquake in San Francisco, they're going to be relying on this county and outside resources, and these are going to be staging areas more than likely. So it's one of those things that we keep looking at. Urban Shield is more of a tactical SWAT type exercise, but I managed the planning section of an EOC, so it gave me more experience on how to run an emergency operations center. And then the Great Shakeout will be coming up. I think it's October 19th, and they're going to do an exercise in the city, but it'll prepare for, I believe the Half Moon Bay city employees are going to participate as well. And it's just an earthquake scenario, and try to how do you react as community and employees, and not actually as emergency responders. And then the Half Moon Bay Pilots Association, they're doing a DART exercise October 28th that we're going to participate in, and they're still working out the details and the fine details on that. So training. As I mentioned, I have an extensive training plan that I developed that goes through June of next year, and it's mostly for emergency preparedness and emergency response individuals. The classes that we're going to teach are Introduction to ICS and NIMS, which is the National Incident Management System, and Incident Command Systems. Single Resource and Initial Action Incidents, which is more for city officials and people in places of management. Intermediate and Advanced ICS. Web EOC is kind of our logistical system that we utilize to track resources and personnel during a disaster. And then SMC Alert, and I'll go into SMC Alert here in a little bit. And then just general preparedness. As I said, I'm going to try to set up some CPR classes, trying to get involved with the schools to see about setting up, maybe an elective course where we can come in and talk about emergency preparedness. And things like that. And then CERT, working with CAL FIRE, for those of you that are familiar with Ari DeLay and Dave Cosgrove, they do a CERT training once a year, and this year their plan is to do it in the El Granada Fire Station, the new one. I think there's a new one, or there's going to be a new one. Yeah.
Won't be ready this year.
A big space, but they're trying to do that first quarter of the year, and once that information comes out, we'll broadcast that so people who want to join up for community, emergency response teams can do that. Alert and warning systems that we have in place are the SMC Alert system. You can sign up by going to that email address. I do have slide packets in the back. There's about 20 of them. For those of you who are not signed up, it's our county-wide system, and it's actually a national-wide system. That uses an Everbridge programming, and it's just a rapid response way that we can send out messages. We can find out it to certain locations, we can geographically map areas, we can send it to zip codes, we can send it to neighborhoods, we can send it to cities. So it's pretty good. And if you don't want to go into the system and sign up with all the pick your locations and all that, you can do a rapid sign up by texting 888-777 and entering your postal zip code, and it'll send you any message related to that zip code. So it's just a quick thing that we've got set up. The emergency alert system, I'm sure most people are familiar with that. It's Amber Alert systems or national type incidents or severe weather warnings. And then tsunami siren systems out here on the coast. I'll talk about them a little bit. For SMC Alert, we currently have 62,000, just over 62,500 subscribers in the county of San Mateo. 11,500 of those are public safety type workers or employees. On the coast side itself, from my area, we have 9,954 signed up. In Montera, 681, Moss Beach, 562, and El Granada, 758. So it just kind of gives you a breakdown of how many. I'm not sure the population of the certain areas, but it just kind of gives you a breakdown of how many people are actually signed up for it. And if you look at the bar graph here on the side, 395 messages have been sent since the 1st of January. And if you look at January, February, that was the winter storm season. So that's why there were so many alerts sent out for road closures, whatever type of incidents. There were some CERT call outs, this and that, and then it kind of dies off a little bit. And then if you look towards the end, that's for the heat and fire season. It picks up a little bit more. Recent events, and this is kind of related to the SMC Alerts of winter storms. There was approximately $35 million in county damage reported. We couldn't get a tried to get a co-side value on that, but once it's put into the system, it's kind of out of our hands and we're not knowledgeable on that information. During those winter storms, the co-side and county EOC were both prepped for opening. Like I said, I wasn't part of that, but just so you know that they were prepped and ready to go. All the computer systems were set up in case a call out was needed. And then we've done hazmat calls through OES. I've been on a few of them. Most of those were on the other side of the hill, but that's one of the things we do is we assist in hazmat in case you need resources or need to evacuate people and need things. And then the cooling centers, the county EOCs was placed on standby 2 weeks ago with the heat because they had cooling centers open throughout the whole county, and they were actually utilized. So we were on standby just in case people needed to find other residents for a short time. As I mentioned, the alert and warning system, on the coastal area from Pacifica down to Pescadero, there's 8 coastal sirens. They're solar powered, they're tested monthly, Wednesday of the month. And as I talked to the committee, I'm a member of the Tsunami Steering Committee, so there may be some issues with some of the signage, which I have seen myself. And they're in the works, they're working their way up the California coast to try to mitigate those issues, and I'm working with them to accomplish that. So hopefully that'll get done in the near future as well. Moving forward, we're working on some social media campaigns, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've got a public information intern who's working on a Puppet Pals for kids to get them involved in emergency preparedness. So we're spending a lot of time and effort on social media campaign. It just seems to be the way to get our voice out there. We're working on some community emergency response team and Department of Public Works memorandum of understandings to share resources so that you're not limited to one certain locale. If we need more people on the coast or if people on the other side of the hill need it, certain members can go over there, DPW can go over there. Those MOUs are being worked on right now. And then one of the real interesting things we're working with Google. They have a vested interest in the county of San Mateo just because they have a lot of employees that travel through it. So they're working with us to do real-time mapping of any incidents that may occur so that we'll have a public map for viewing that you can click on and go to that will show any real-time incidents, say road closures, as fast as we can get them up to date and input into the system. They will help map us, and they're even offering to secondary back us up in case something happens with us. They'll take over all the operation on it. So it's a really good plan, really good system in place. And here's my contact information for anybody who may like it. I spend a majority of my time at the co-side EOC Half Moon Bay substation. 1 day a week I'm over in Redwood City, and then that's my email and my phone number. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
Can you, do you have a website, some way to stay informed? One reason I ask is because the MCC website, we try and have Midcoast information there of all sorts, and we could help with that. We knew how to be in touch with what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the county has, if you go to the county website, there's an emergency preparedness page.
So it's just countywide, it's not really what you're doing here on the coast.
Right, I don't have one personally. I mean, Half Moon Bay kind of has one, but I'll look into that. I'll look into see if I can get some kind of county co-side website for.
Yeah, I looked up,
for preparedness.
found something there, still had Nick's name on it.
Yeah, and like Nick's name's still in quite a few things, especially CEC related things. But I'll look into that. Definitely.
And yeah, let us know, like I say, we can link to it or find out from it.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
One of the things that concerns people on the coast a lot in terms of day-to-day emergencies is availability of medical services and other emergency services given our traffic concerns in the fog. Is this something that your office looks at all? We need creative thinking for this.
I'm glad you said that because I should have mentioned that. The Medical Reserve Corps was something that was established along with, in conjunction with the Coastside Emergency Corps. And through the KEEP meetings, the Coastside Emergency Action Program, they've developed a subcommittee to try to reestablish the Medical Reserve Corps. We have trailers on the coast, stocked with medical reserve type things that we can utilize, the American Red Cross can utilize.
That's not what I meant.
Right, and for transportation wise, yes, the Coast Guard, Happy Bay Airport, air services we've looked at, but that's the unique challenge with the coast, is the fact that if 92 closes, 1 closes, and you gotta travel through, down south to get through Santa Cruz or through Pescadero, even if some of them, we're self-reliant. I did get a call just the other day from Stanford or Seton Health about talking to them about capabilities out here on the coast. So yes, I'm definitely into that because I'm a medical person, so I understand that need. And there's usually 1 to 2 ambulance located on the coast during a certain shift, which I do know as well, and that's not a lot. And then our little clinic isn't going to be able to handle a lot of traumas. So it's one of those things that is very concerning, especially for, functional needs type individuals and people that are on, we've got quite a few access and functional needs personnel or people throughout the coast that would be a challenge to try to help and continue help for an extended period of time without outside resources. So it's something that's being looked at, and unfortunately there's not a whole lot that was in place prior to me coming in when I looked at it for a type of plan for medical.
More questions? Dan?
Quick question. Thank you for your presentation, Chad. Today I got an alert on my phone about the heat. And was that the SMC alert?
SMC Alert, yes, it would have came. Yeah, we've been mandated to put out the heat warning that it's coming up, and that cooling centers will be there because some of the surrounding communities, I won't name specific cities, didn't put out that they had cooling centers open, and people didn't do it, and they actually had some fatalities related to the heats in a couple weeks ago. So we've been mandated to put those out. So that would come from the SMC Alert system. Whether it came from us or public health, I don't know, because the SMC Alert system is just our hub. We just control it. We're like the housing authority for it, in a sense. We can send messages out. I can send messages out, but the fire district, the police department, the highway patrol, public health, public works, Caltrans, they can all use the system to send out alerts.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, but curious now. Has there been discussion about any expanding alerts to heavy rain, heavy wind, etc.? Or I'm just
there's been some talks. So one of the talks was traffic jams. And the thing is if we did that, we'd be tying the system down. And I live on the coast, so I know Labor Day weekend. I wish there was alerts because I had no idea it was going to be this busy out here. But it's one of those things that we don't want to bog it down with. We don't want to bog it down with information when there is a true emergency and we can't utilize the system the way it needs to be utilized.
Right.
And then another issue is validation. The information we put out needs to be valid information, and it needs to be reliable and validated information, whether it's traffic accidents. During the winter storms, there were trees down here and there. We didn't have anybody on scene. Police were not on scene, and they didn't send that information out, so there was a lot of complaints. Well, the sergeant, there's designated sergeants, they're called OESLs, and they're liaison for the Office of Emergency Services. They send out those text messages, those SMC alerts, but they need to make sure that the scene's safe prior to sending that out. They don't get on scene and then type in the message and then go and make sure it's safe. So that's one of the issues. There is a time delay there, but it has to be validated information. So,
Thank you, Chad.
you're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, go ahead. If it's a long question, come up with a microphone.
I was just wondering, one of the most likely scenarios for the coastside is the possibility of an earthquake or a tsunami, where we could have a lot of coastside damage, and there could be a lot of people trapped here. Are there any plans to develop evacuation centers on the coastside?
Yes, we have a lot of evacuation centers in place. A lot of the schools have them, and any of the community centers have them. And there is definitely shelter operation plans in place for the entire coast. I will just leave it at that.
I have one other quick question. The tsunami signs that are currently on the coast, I've noticed that as far north as Montera, okay.
Nobody will hear you.
All right. The tsunami signs that are currently all over the coast, I've noticed that as far north as Montera, the signs tell you to go south toward Half Moon Bay. Doesn't make sense. Can you explain that?
Well, I will briefly try to explain that because I've seen signs that point in opposite directions as well. So that's one of the things that going to the steering committee, the tsunami steering committee that I asked about, and that's they're trying to get to the county and do that. And I'll say it on record here, one of the biggest things is cross over one and you're fine. In just about any location from the tunnel, maybe not in the harbor, but the harbor's got the wall. So even during the last tsunami, it didn't have any extensive damage. The flooding, unless it is a tsunami of the century, or whatever you want, of the decade, or the millennium, it's the chances of severe flooding damage from a tsunami on the coast are pretty slim. The probability is slim. So all you have to do is cross one. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, how they can do signs that say this way rather than those that way.
They actually did about 3-4 years ago
Yeah.
fix that. They had signs that pointed right at Surfers Beach as an evacuation route, and that is the most vulnerable section on the
Right.
coast. So they're improving them.
So like I said, the inundation zones, if you look, and you can go on the sites and look at the inundation zones on the GIS, which means the flooding zones, you can look at them, and there's just little strips along the coast. So if you cross over one, and the thing that people don't realize too, with the tsunami warning, you're gonna have 6-7 hours of warning notice. Even if it starts here, it's going to go out. So it's not going to immediately affect us. It's going to go outwards. It's the physics of flow. If it happens in Oregon or Alaska, you're still going to have 3-4 hours worth of notification, and that's going to be more of a sweeping wave rather than a frontal wave. So there's a lot of things that play into that, but it is one of those things. Doing the research. If you cross over one, you're pretty much going to be safe. The problem is keeping people from coming over and wanting to see the wave.
So I just wanted to add to that, on the MCC website, there's a page for ocean and shoreline issues. In the right column here, we have tsunami, and there's a link here to a Midcoast evacuation sites and shelter map. And it shows the evacuation zone, and it shows evacuation sites, and then evacuation center, where you can actually, I guess, go use the bathroom or something. But, and this was good to see you had the actual locations of the sirens, because we've had several threads on Nextdoor where people say, well, I hear the siren, but where am I supposed to go? Or, I don't hear the siren, and
So,
what's with that? And
I'll go back to that map, and that's a good point. These sirens are where the inundation zone would be.
Right, so this particularly, I'm particularly aware of this because I live in an inundation zone at Pillar Ridge, and our community in, what was it, 2011, we got robocalls at 5 a.m. saying evacuate. And people had just seen this stuff in Japan on the TV.
Right.
And they didn't know. They didn't know about the signs, they didn't know about the map of where to go, and they went up to Skyline.
Yeah.
And so people who live in the zones, they need to have a plan, they need to have a bilingual plan, what to do, they need the map.
Absolutely.
And this was part of the request that we had made a year or two ago, and also to straighten out these signs, because, clearly you come out of our community, it correctly says go north, and then it doesn't say stop at the site, there's no sign for the evacuation site, it takes you out onto the highway and then directs you back down to Surface Beach.
Yeah, I will.
And in Princeton, the same thing, it'll take you out of Princeton, north of Capistrano, then south on Highway 1, you come out of the harbor on Capistrano, it says turn right on Highway 1 to go to Surface Beach.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know how they can do it over the, to just say go over one,
but there they are.
Yeah.
I live in probably in inundation zone, and I have never heard a siren. When we had a warning several years ago, my relatives in Kentucky called me up because they saw it on the news to tell me that we should do something. You want to go out and see where these sirens are actually audible.
Yeah, and I've seen some of them, and I tried to listen to a few of them, and I couldn't hear very many of them either. But it's a very low, the warning system siren, the test is very low. It's a very
not full
low.
volume.
Correct. It's very
The
low.
actual siren is considered.
It would be a lot louder. It's a low volume test. What they're doing is they're testing the system that says it's actually going. And they do go out and visually or audibly listen, but it's a very low warning siren. If the real one comes on,
Never
if you've
heard
ever
it.
heard a tornado
Never heard
warning
it.
siren, like it's extremely loud. You'll hear it.
Didn't hear it.
Yeah, we'll see if they'll do a full on, I'll see if they can do a full on one, maybe once a quarter or something.
Anybody in Bill?
Thank you, Chair, for coming. I was actually hoping you go into a little bit, one of the changes that have taken place since Bill Fogarty and Chad have taken over the OES is that beforehand, it was all tightly controlled by one or two personalities. And one of the things that Lieutenant Fogarty is doing, which I think is really good from the community standpoint, is he's trying to turn over the CEC, the Coastside Emergency Corps, to local control. I was hoping Steve Stockman would be here tonight, but I don't see him. Right now,
He's in Europe.
Oh, lucky him.
Yeah.
Anyway, he has a meeting coming up, and the reason I'm getting up here, I think you mentioned it earlier, and you can mention it again. They're actually setting up the bylaws, and it's going to be community-run, and they're going to work hand in glove with OES to answer Claire's earlier question. OES looks at emergency services for disasters for the most part. The question you were asking about, day-to-day incidents, heart attacks, car crashes, or whatever, becomes an issue to the fire department. And that's really a question to put to Supervisor Horsley, the fact that we don't have that medical infrastructure on the coast side. It's not OES's fault, and they have to work with what they got. But there's planning for the next disaster, whatever that might be. The good part about Steve and the community people that are working on that is that a lot of these issues can get worked out, especially people that live here, if they'll sign up. There'll be more CERT training. I've gone through a lot of it over the years. So all these things about what do you do during the tsunami, you walk uphill. You don't drive anyplace. That's the first thing they tell you, especially on the coast side, because you're gonna be stuck in traffic. And more than likely, at least the people in Montero and Morris Beach, you're gonna be stuck at Surface Beach. Not a good place to be in your car, right? So the best thing to do is just walk uphill with a bunch of water and wait till you either get to the skyline or what have you. But that's planning, and you gotta do it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I would say if you haven't taken any of these training classes for CERT, even if you don't wanna be a person out there that teaches you what to do in your own home, in your own neighborhood, you should take it, because if Chad was a Superman, if Bill Fogarty and all his staff were super people, they're for the whole county. And it's gonna be hard for them to even get here. I mean, I hope you're home that day. But you better know how to do it on your own, and you better learn how to do the stuff. And it's comforting to know this stuff. And then you get on the list and you get involved where you can do it, and you'll figure out how the stuff works. And a lot of the questions that you have, if you feed it back to these guys, they work on getting that incorporated. And so what Lisa was just saying, there should be a bilingual thing that says, go to the Mormon church in Morris Beach. That's a control center. But who would know that? I know that because I walk by it all the time, and I live in that area. But there's lots of those little places around here that need to be put on maps. And also, I was going to ask, did the Red Cross do the fire alarm systems at Pillar Ridge? Oh, they did. Yeah, they did do it there. So that's another good place. Anyway, I want to thank you for helping us out here.
So where did you say you signed up for these courses?
I'll leave some business cards back there. You can get through me. Like I said, CERT is a CAL FIRE. Well, it's a fire entity. I can help get you in the right direction. The CEC, once the board gets going, they're going to try to do promotions. I'm going to try to help them out with, doing community promotions and getting out at some of the events and, and do that.
You know the date and place that CEC board meeting is going to be held?
Yeah, it's October 20. Off the top of my head, I don't know. The thing with that one is it's yeah, I don't know how they want to do it. I can't say that anybody should just show up because that's not my place. That's his thing to determine. So we'll see.
I'll send them a note too.
Yeah, and you can do that, and then maybe they can put it on the website or something.
Anybody else? Thanks, Chad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I need the, that thing here. He's got the,
Maybe.
oh, he offered me.
Left to right.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the proposed 50-space RV park on vacant 3.3 acres at the northwest corner of Capistrano and Highway 1 in Princeton.
Tight.
And we have a draft letter here to discuss and consider tonight. It's posted on our website. There's some out on the table. This project had a pre-application workshop in 2015, and the general concern was the undesirable visual aesthetic of another RV lot in this coastal view sensitive location. However, this is a Coastal Commission priority visitor serving use. It's low cost housing, so there is that. So anyway, our comments in a moment here. I'm not going to read the letter, but anyway, so this is the site plan. And Highway 1 is at the top, Capistrano Road is on the right, and the Harbor Village parking lot is at the bottom in this orientation. So it fills that empty lot that's there, and the camping sites are along Capistrano, and the signs at the top are, one of the things we asked for in our letter is not to use this name, Princeton Harbor. So on the current sign that's out there, Oceano Hotel and Spa, it says under there Half Moon Bay Harbor, which has always sort of irked me. But now we have the proposal for Princeton Harbor RV Park. So I have to say that I have discussed this issue with the owner, and he's amenable to changing the name you know, we acknowledge that the name of the harbor is Pillar Point Harbor. And so any other name that will work for his purposes, he's open to not making up a new name for the harbor. Let's see here. So this is the, so if you're driving south on Highway 1 and you're stopped at the light there, that would be the view across the empty lot. This is the remaining view after the construction of the hotel and the mall and all that other stuff and the cypress trees. This is the view, and then at the bottom is the concept plan, the visual of how this would look when they landscape the area to screen the RVs. So what we're asking for, we thought we'd ask for, is for scenic resource protection. So the red arrow indicates where you can still see across to see the marine view, and so that corner, we would like to have that be a clear view easement area to protect the remaining view corridor. It should be pointed out that the harbor lots across Capistrano are all significantly below grade, that they're not really an issue with the view. And, well, this idea of a clear view easement, the council has dealt with this previously. There was a house in El Granada that had this clear view easement, and they had to build a house so that it didn't block this remaining corner of their property for the view from a public street to the ocean. So, and also the other example of this sort of thing is the beach house in Half Moon Bay, which was approved. It was the Marchant Hotel at the time, was approved in 1990 and appealed to the Coastal Commission, and the Coastal Commission said the plan should be revised to move the building envelope to retain unobstructed ocean view from Highway 1 across the southern portion of that parcel. At that time, the RV park in that location was not there, so there was an open view. There were no cypress trees there. And so the condition was complied with. The picture on the bottom was the original hotel. It went all across the whole property, and they redesigned it to leave this view corridor. Problem is, between the cup and the lip, this landscaping the landscaping wasn't checked and the cypress trees block the view anyway. So basically what we're asking for in this Clearview easement is that nothing taller than 5 feet in that area, or 5 feet up from existing grade, and that includes landscaping. And so if they want to screen, so they do need to screen the RVs, because if you're coming northbound on the highway, you're looking right at that empty lot, so you do need screening there, but they'll have to sit back outside this easement, assuming the county applies this. We're just recommending that, that's all. So that's the proposal. Does the council have any questions? All right, I'll open public comment. I have one speaker slip, Steve McGraw. If you want to speak, remember, I need speaker slips.
Chair Ketchum, council members, thank you very much. I'm Steve McGraw, I'm the general manager of the San Mateo County Harbor District, which manages the adjacent Pillar Point Harbor. And I want to make it absolutely clear, first off, that the Board of Harbor Commissioners has not addressed this item yet, so we don't have any position on the proposed development. However, I've talked with our staff, and John Draper, our Assistant Harbor Master, is here this evening, and we see no operational impacts of the development. However, I would concur with the comment that Chair Ketchum made regarding the naming of the facility. I think the introduction of another name that ties one word to the word harbor is just simply confusing, and I would recommend that the county work with the applicant to address that. I too have spoken with the owner of the property, and he expressed the same sentiment to me that he did to you, Chair Ketchum. Asked me to put on my creative hat, but that's not my skill set at all. So I'll leave that to others. But thank you for the opportunity to address the council.
Thanks for your support on that. Did you want to add anything to my very brief presentation, or you? That's all the speaker slips I have, so. This is Ron Stefanik, he's the applicant.
Yeah, Ron Stefanik. So I'm basically here to answer questions, but Lisa brought up the naming, and to be honest with you, I asked a lot of people how we should name this thing just so we could go through the process of the application. Nobody came up with anything, so I'm the culprit that came up with that. So, and after it's been brought up, I agree it's not a good name. For the lack of finding a better name, I do want to call it the Oceano RV Park. If you want to take suggestions and pick a name, we're all for it.
Well, he called me today and I said, I had initially thought Harbor Village RV Park because it's there with Harbor Village, but it really doesn't matter, whatever.
That would be perfect. Like I said, Oceano, Harbor Village RV Park, it's whatever you like.
I mean, you could call it the Coastal RV Park, Coastside. I mean, just so you don't have any copyright issues with other named entities there, you know.
Well, it's all the same owner.
Oh, got it. Really? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I wasn't proposing they take the name of the name, right.
Okay.
I'll put some of these things aside for now. So the other comment I would make is, I didn't bring the large plans. So I'm seeing your line of sight. And we've addressed, okay, so we've created a landscape plan as per required, and at the time we had a preliminary hearing, it's been about 1.5 years ago, and at that meeting, it was stressed by some people in the audience that they wanted the RVs screened. They didn't want to see the RVs. So we've created a landscape plan to shield the RVs as much as possible. So, but by doing so, that's cut down the line of sight. The landscaping pretty much ends at the end of the cypress trees, but we've also added, as you can see here, some other low shrubbery. And then along Capistrano Road, we've put in these New Zealand Christmas trees that get up to 15 to 18 feet. And our other thing that was mentioned in that meeting is that they didn't like the RVs right on Capistrano Road because that's a view corridor. So we feel we've rectified that by putting the RVs where the tents were in the back of the site and putting the tents in the front. And we've also, in the tents would have gravel driveways, we've had grass for the tent sites and possibly grass under the table sites. And then we're proposing 3-foot undulating berms in front of the tent sites, and then shrubbery that grows anywhere from 3 to 6 feet. And that would conceal the RVs that much more. RVs range from 8 to 10 feet. The site on this end of the project is 2 feet lower, and it gradually goes up level. We're gonna have to bend the site to get all the drainage. So that's gonna add approximately another 2 feet. So you'll only see about 2 feet of the RVs. But by doing so, it's gonna take away the line of sight. However, we're fairly close to Lisa's arrow with the tents and the corner, because the RVs have landscaping at the ends of the parking slots. If we reduce the heights of that landscaping and cut across, now, I'm agreeable to go to 5 feet with the landscaping, but you're gonna see the RVs. So which is the worst of the two evils? You wanna see the ocean, or you wanna see the RVs? Because the RVs are gonna block some
No,
of
you'd
the
have to
landscaping.
move, you'd have to move this stuff out of that area, because the screening for the RVs would have to go to the north of the red line, the tall stuff.
The pardon?
The tall vegetation to screen the RVs would have to be to the left of the red line
Yes.
in order to keep the 5-foot max in
Yes.
that
I
cleared
think what
easement.
John is asking is, do we think either us or the community is okay with seeing the RVs from the highway if they go with the lower vegetation?
Yes. Okay,
I
so
personally would answer yes.
I'm saying here
I'm fine
now
with
is that we're agreeable to do that as long as the county is also agreeable, because they brought it up as well, that they wanted screening. Now, maybe they're saying that because of the comments of the previous meeting.
Well,
So-
my thought was that in order to accomplish this, you would have to reduce the number of RVs.
I can't commit to that now, Lisa, so we would have to see on a map where exactly where that line is and see how it would affect. I can see approximately where that line is,
Yeah. Well,
but I can't commit to that now.
no, you don't need to.
Yeah.
We're not the decision makers, it's just our
I
recommendation.
know, that's fine.
And then you get to figure it out.
But some things I can agree to now. The
Pardon?
name is fine, and I can pretty much agree to lowering the shrubs. I don't have a particular problem with that.
Well, I just wanted to say that the New Zealand Christmas trees do grow to 20 to 40 feet tall. And,
Right.
and, you know, they may, so, and even 12 feet on a 3-foot berm is gonna block the view.
Right.
So, it's just, you know, what you've got there now does screen the RVs pretty well if you're coming northbound on the highway and you're
Right.
looking across Capistrano.
Right.
Problem is, the view's gone from the other way. So
Agreed.
if the whole thing was shifted back out of there, including your screening shrubs,
Yeah.
then that would accomplish this. But we're just putting this out there as something that has precedent, and the county, they're gonna decide. So, that's all.
Okay.
All right?
Any other questions for me? Or?
Anybody else have anything for Ron or Sid? You wanna come up to the,
Carlisle
Say your name.
and
Oh,
Young,
thank you.
Moss Beach. When I moved to the coast in 1988, you could clearly see the harbor as you traveled south. And now, since they've put in Harbor Village and, of course, this proposed RV park, I agree, trees are not the way to go. Look what happened at the beach house. They have, and even the RV park down next to the beach house, they put in cypress trees and they're completely obscuring the view. I prefer shrubs. Thank you.
anybody else? Okay, I'll close the public comment. Council discussion, do we have a motion on the letter?
I'll move to approve the letter as written and present and the attachments.
Or a second? No second.
Not yet. We're not there. Do we gonna have
You can
discussion
second
or
and
do we?
have discussion, yeah, I'm gonna call the vote.
Okay,
to
I'll
order.
second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add that, echoing on Sid's comments, I'm really concerned with the view corridor. We have been, our community, all across, up and down the coast side, we've been losing views left and right. It's beyond reasonable, in my opinion. Personally, I'd like to see that red line move, 50% through the lot. I think that cypress tree should be removed. I used to be able to see the ocean from my house. I can't see it anymore from my house. I like to be able to walk onto Alhambra and see the ocean. And, you know, we're just getting, our views are getting whittled away. So I'm very concerned with the view corridor being preserved. In addition, I have a comment with this project, is that parking is a real issue. It's getting worse every year. I think everybody realizes that. The Harbor District has announced that they're gonna take some parking away in front of the restaurants. I was told that equal amount will be placed back. It's hard for me to really vision that. We know we're losing, or we lost parking spaces in front of the hotel. On busy weekends, there are visitors now parking in our neighborhoods. Our streets in our community were never designed really for two-way traffic and cars parked on both sides. I think a lot of people in this room understand that a lot of times we have to stop and pull off to the side to let the other car pass through. And every visitor parking their car in our neighborhood just compounds that problem. Not only will there be more cars parked, but the traffic will be increased in our neighborhoods, causing safety issues, yada, yada. I would like to see the front portion of that corner be a straw field, overflow parking. Everybody knows we're heading in the direction where parking is just gonna be more and more serious. That's prime parking for visitor serving that area, so I would like to see it reduced drastically.
Anybody else? Chris?
I fully support the letter, everything that it says in here. I hope that the MCC gets to see this project again on the agenda, because I have serious issue with the drainage report and the traffic report.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you. Next item is Mid-Penn. Wait a minute, I'm trying to do two things at once. Okay, so, proposed 71-unit Mid-Penn affordable housing community on 11 acres at Carlos and Sierra in Moss Beach. I feel deja vu. Anyway, okay, so we have a draft letter. It's posted online, it's out on the table, and I'm not going to read the letter, but I have some slides to kind of go over the points in the letter. And but first I want to say, so our normal process with an agenda item, we'll have a presentation. The council members will ask clarifying questions, and in this case, I'm going to ask for some initial comments from the council, and then I'll open public comment, and then the council will discuss and make a decision. Just the introduction to the letter talks about this process so far. The MCC had this on the agenda, introduced Mid-Penn to the community in February 2016. And that was the only time at that meeting, since it was on our agenda, that the council members actually got to speak on this topic. Of course, there was no project yet then. But since then, we have not been able, it's been a one-way conversation. We have listened to the community. We can't speak back when it's not on the agenda, but we can provide the forum for people to come and speak on camera throughout this time. And there was even an opportunity when Supervisor Horsley was here in January, talking about his priorities for the year when the group came in force and made their presentation to him. Plus, we have attended as individuals all the workshops and the workshop last week. So And we have your talking points from resist density, we received email letters, we received the comment letter today, and also the study on the sewer issues, and those are posted with the meeting materials for tonight, so that's all there. And this is still just a pre-application, this is not an actual complete planning permit, and I would encourage individuals to send your comments to the planner, Mike Schaller. Email them to him so that they can be included in the summer report that the county will produce from that pre-application workshop, which will be sent to MidPen, and you want your comments incorporated in that. Okay, so to the slides, there's the concept plan for the current version. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. I won't go into the details. So I just wanted to talk about some issues that there's been some confusion in comments and in the community about what's really happening here. So this is from the county land use map. The color code there is what the land uses are for these areas. And the dark brown is medium density residential. It's your R1 districts that most of you live in, including the area next to this proposed development. And then the arrow points to the whatever color that is, pink, I don't know, which is zoned medium high density residential. Now, this proposal, the first step in it will be an LCP amendment to change that high density, medium high density zoning to medium density. So it would then be the same as the surrounding neighborhoods, the same density. And also I would like to note that multifamily housing is not allowed to add second units. So that density will stay the same. But the surrounding single-family neighborhoods are allowed to have second units. So this may end up that the surrounding neighborhoods are more dense than this proposed development. But the amendment process for the density is already part of this process is going to happen. This is a slide from the presentation MidPen made last week. Was that last week? So we're at 71 units. Oh, and I just wanted to point out also, because there was some other notes elsewhere pointing out about, I wanted to point out the difference between public open space and, what's the term they used? In the common area open space. So this one with a red X, that was approved in '86 with 148 units. It had open space in it, but it was like in the yards. It wasn't something that the community could walk through. It was closed off, whereas the MidPen project has roughly half left as open space, but the trails are on the perimeter and the public is invited to use those. You can still walk your dog and go around by the creek and go around the front. That's there. Just wanted to point that out. While we're here and it mentions parking spaces, I did look up the county zoning requirements for parking for single-family residential, and I didn't do an analysis of that. I think this is way early in the process, and for the fine-tuning on the number of parking, we don't have it in our letter here tonight. I just think it's too early. This is rather dense text here, but this is from an email. Okay, so we got comment from a community member who is concerned about the people who would be living here, that they would be jobless and without resources and concerned about crime and other issues. And so this is to clarify the economic demographic of that MidPen is targeting. The units will be targeted towards a range of incomes. The lowest will be targeted to households earning 30% of the average median income, whereas the highest will be 80% of AMI. Can I say AMI? Average median income. There will also be units targeted at income levels in between that, so targeted to incomes at 40%, 50%, and 60% AMI. So a family of 4 seeking to live in a unit targeted to 80% of AMI could earn at most $105K. I've rounded this up to the nearest thousand. $105K. Or a household with 2 people could earn at most $84K. For units targeted to 30% AMI, a family of 4 could earn up to $39,000, or a two-person household could earn up to $32,000 a year. Most families would be earning somewhere in between those numbers in order to be eligible to live at the development. This is not a Section 8 development. Under county requirements, Mid-Penn will be required to reserve 4 units for households that are at risk of homelessness and can use Section 8 tenant-based vouchers. Beyond those 4 units, Mid-Penn is not targeting any units toward households with Section 8 vouchers. Mid-Penn is specifically planning on implementing a coast side work preference so we can target people who do have jobs on the coast. So that's taken from an email from Mid-Penn. I didn't make it. Pardon?
Was that document in your package?
This slide presentation is on the website, so you can refer to it.
I didn't see anything in there that said that any of the single veteran units would be occupied.
I just added that last slide about 2 hours ago.
So do you think that there will only be couples and families living there, no single individuals or seniors? Doesn't say anything about one.
This is not a comprehensive demographic of every single unit. This is to give you a range
Okay.
of who's living there and the fact that they will have jobs and families.
But you didn't put anything in there for a single person that just.
No, the only numbers they gave me are what I put here.
It's just to keep the slide briefer. You can go to the county website and you get all of those numbers.
All right.
Okay, so the issues in our letter had headings, and the first one was development density. I think I covered that. The next one is public transit. So I initially had remarked that this project is right on the highway corridor and the bus stop right across the street, and that the job hubs that did go, are all along the highway corridor. And so I thought, well, that's pretty promising. And then the bus schedules for the 17 are hourly weekdays, it's better than nothing, could be better. But anyway, it seemed to have potential, but then at a closer look, the 17 in the what does it say? There's no weekday northbound AM service, and there's no northbound PM because the routes, whenever the kids need to go to Half Moon Bay in the morning, the bus is going on Sunshine Valley Road, and it totally bypasses this place. And same thing in the afternoon, the buses are all going on Sunshine Valley Road going north. So that seriously limits the bus service at this parcel at this time. And of course, the number 18 for the school kids doesn't ever go past there. And so at those times, the nearest bus stop is either at Main and 6th in Montero or down at Ethelmore, and it's like practically a mile away. So that's why the letter says, without convenient school and commuter bus service at this location on the highway corridor, the project cannot be justified. And I did get a call from Mid-Penn after they read this letter, and we're concerned with this. And I said, as far as the school goes, I think this is more an issue of getting the kids that have to go to Half Moon Bay. It's not so much getting them to Fairlawn View, as far as a bus for that, But I told them you need to be talking to not only to Samtrans, but to the school district. And, there certainly would have to be a lot worked out. Anyway, that was our comment on that. Then, this slide is just to go over the stuff in the traffic report, the preliminary analysis for Carlos that was included in the Mid-Penn pre-application. And I've just pulled out here the issues that I think pertain, because there was stuff in that report that doesn't pertain, really. And it is preliminary. So anyway, here's what I wanted to call out. So they put cables in the road to count the traffic. And they determined there was limited usage at Carlos under existing conditions. Then they determined that with the size of this project, there would be no significant intersection delay due to the project. And you can relate this to Sid, at Cypress, what does it take to trigger a signal warrant? It takes a heck of a lot of cars. So anyway, in the study, they determined that you didn't need intersection control there, and yet they went ahead and looked at intersection control. And the comments from DPW on their application were, what'd she say? Nice pictures, not much to comment on. And then she had a printout, this is Diana Shu at DPW. And then she had a printout of the traffic report, and she made some comments there, and one was, if you're not proposing this as mitigation, leave this out. So I mean, basically the roundabout, the signal, don't worry about it, just leave it out. Because it takes a lot to reach that point. Even at Cypress, we're not there yet. So that leaves us with the safety concerns. That the left turn onto the highway is unsafe due to poor sight distance and the 50-mile-an-hour speed. That the right turn off the highway is a sharp U-turn, and that the two-way center-left turn lane shared with the lighthouse is an issue. This is, I mean, I hope I'm capturing it all. Then we have, on the neighborhood streets, we have substandard development. When I don't mean the houses are substandard, I mean the road itself is substandard. That was the remark. But the right-of-way is adequate. Some of the streets are not in the county-maintained road system. And then MidPen said in their presentation, the next steps would be a detailed traffic study and to solicit community input on options and coordinate with county and Caltrans. Those are all very important things. That's good. So I pulled this out, this business about road standards. And I don't think many people are aware of this. You can find this picture on the MCC website on the Public Works road page. And these were determined in 1990. It was a community effort. They didn't want curbs and fancy streets. They wanted them more rural. And they came up with this. You have the travelway, you have the valley gutters, and then whatever. And so, like I say, this was done in the early 90s. And so you'll find, you go places and you see sidewalks and curbs and no sidewalks and you see everything. But it was all done before. And so it's sort of like we don't have a definition of the term of how those roads are developed. I mean, we just know that, well, gee, I can't pass the other car, but, you know, as to what's to be done, we're not there yet. It would require community involvement, and what do you want your street to look like? What do we need to accomplish here? But anyway, I just wanted to have that.
That's not Highway 1, that would be like Carlos or 16 for Ethelboro, right?
Yes, this is
This is
county
county
roads.
I'm talking about county roads.
Yeah.
This is county roads,
Right.
not the highway. Okay, so then, the other points in our letter relate to bike and pedestrian mobility and vehicle highway access, and there's some more slides to explain this. So these were just the points in the letter. We need a safe crossing at the Lighthouse 16th Street. We have needed this forever, and we need it worse all the time, and it has to be done. Raised median refuge island enables a two-stage crossing process, one direction of traffic at a time, without the need to stop traffic. We went over this during the crossings project, and it got all muddled up, and I don't want to go into the details, but anyway, there's nothing in the works now anyhow. And then we also asked for the parallel trail segment in this area. It should be prioritized and implemented if this project is to happen. The comments from Resistensity and community members about about walkability and local services to buy food, whatever, those needs. I mean, this relates to everybody here. When we say we're trapped in our homes, the traffic, all this stuff. If there was a store in the downtown area and you could walk or bike there, you didn't need to get in your car to do everything. It would be good for everybody. So that's why we're asking for it. It's not particularly, anyway, it doesn't hurt to ask. Vehicle highway access and safety. So the highway traffic calming measures that we first learned about in the mobility study, 2012, and before that, to reduce speed and improve safety. We need further analysis and refinement of the mobility study concept plan for the vicinity and the feasibility of rerouting Carlos to 16th Street. This is a feasibility for doing that. That would give safer vehicle highway access and would also delete that two-way center turn lane. So in these next few slides, I'm going to show you some of this background planning studies that were done, community efforts that were done so that the people who were busy with other things or they didn't live here yet, whatever it is, so that you can be aware of this background of things we learned and how the process works, so that we have a starting point now to have community discussions on what we want this area to look like, what the community wants to ask for. And just to say, if the community can reach consensus, you got a lot better chance of getting what you ask for as far as these traffic treatments. So this is from the 2012 Safety and Mobility Study. It's a concept plan for the area in question from 14th Street up past the Carlos. You'll notice that this plan proposed right turn only at Carlos. They saw the danger there. Keep in mind, this is before Caltrans put this painted center turn lanes in. So they had proposed rate medians in there. Now the dotted line on the left is the coastal trail coming north in front of the, on the west side of the highway, and then the coastal trail crosses there at the lighthouse and continues north, sharing the parallel trail, which follows, the parallel trail is supposed to go all the way to Half Moon Bay and all the way to Montero. So, also a key place that the MCC's been advocating to get fixed is this east side trail from the lighthouse and 16th Street across Montero Creek Ravine to 14th on the east side. I said that. So this was looked at in the mobility study in 2012 also, and they came with this cool sketch for the improved trail and a barrier there and a median refuge island for the crossing. And now in this upper picture, you can see the painted left turn lanes that Caltrans has put in at this point. That's a newer picture that I took.
On the last slide, what was the dot that looked through it, as if it went through
That's
the
the coastal
Montero parking lot?
That's the coastal trail.
It's gonna go through their parking lot area?
Yeah.
Whose parking lot?
MWSD.
That's not a parking lot, that's a right of way.
Okay. Is that, I think I was reading this package earlier, were you thinking of having the mid-pen housing people cut out across through there to turn left, since you're proposing prohibiting left turn lane to go south?
We're not, the MCC is not proposing the solutions. That needs to come from the whole community.
All
We're
right,
just saying that we're filling you on the background, the studies have been done, and the options we're asking them to assess. Other people may have more ideas, like I say, send them to the planner. Okay, so we looked at that. And then the last thing that happened was this crossings project, where we, in 2015 and 16, we thought we were going to get some Midcoast crossings. And so there were community meetings on design alternatives, mostly in Moss Beach and Montero, and there was this choice for the lighthouse. And so this is the two alternatives that we were offered at the lighthouse, and one is just a crossing with push button flashing beacons, and then the median, you can see they put hatched paint in the median areas, and no change to Carlos. It was just about the crossing. And then the other one was, it had raised medians. It had a raised median refuge island there at the crossing. And then the solid gray that you can see going out to the north and south is this wide median thing that they said, oh, well, that's needed to warn motor, I don't know. Anyway, it was very expensive. And so anyway, there's no funding for it. It's just sitting there in limbo too. But just to let you know, there's some other ideas of, and the fact that this bottom one with the raised medians could be, you could maybe start with that and say, okay, close Carlos, bring that over. You don't need as long of a median. You could still have your crossing. I mean, any number of things. These are just ideas to help spur your thinking. I guess that's my slide presentation, and well, there's Romeo Pier, bye-bye. I'm gonna close this, I think. And so the other thing I wanted to do was just to hit on, quickly go over some of the points in the letter dated yesterday from Resist Density. We have, number one, it says, naval use and necessary to test for toxics. That's clearly going to be done when the county gets to all their studies and whatever. And then number 2, this is about water. So now there's a letter posted on the affordable housing page from MWSD. I guess Resist Density went and talked to them. They wrote a letter dated August 4, 2016, regarding water use for this project. They do have a Coastal Commission certified work plan, and this is a priority use. So it's not up to us to, opine or judge that, really. That's, you take it up there, and they'll all have to weigh in as this project is studied. Same thing for the sewer authority. That would be SAM and MWSD, and it should all come out in the EIR, and basically I would all come out. I think that basically the time that this project is going to take, that intertie pipeline better be replaced, because I mean, it's like, that's more important than, it's like, that's not brought up to kill this project. That's something that really needs to get done. So, so we didn't go into that either. Number 4, it says, this is about the traffic study. Just want to remind you, that was just a preliminary, whatever, the full traffic study to come. You critique it then, critique the EIR. All these things will come in time, and I'm just saying you can't critique it, it's not there yet. And I don't know what good it is anyway. Number 5, traffic analysis. We've talked about that. Okay, this thing about the EIR, I don't know who said what, that the old EIR could be used for this, but that is totally not true, okay? Forget that. The person misunderstood the question, the person misunderstood the answer, or whatever happened. That's not true. A 1986 EIR does not apply to this project, okay? I'll bet you whatever amount of money. Okay. The number 7, the current zoning. So I don't really understand this, because I don't understand the issue with this item, because I explained that this parcel is going to be rezoned if this project goes forward. It will be rezoned to a lower density to match the neighboring area. So don't understand what the problem is with changing the zoning. And it says here that the previous, the PUD zoning, had 5 acres as open space. And I don't know where that comes from, because I have the PUD, I read it, and it says it has a breakdown on open space, but it's common area open space. And the picture of it shows the whole thing is so developed that I don't understand. Mid-Penn's already at about 50%, and it's, anyway, so that's all I have from my presentation. Next step, hold on. Next step will be questions from the council on the presentation.
So you would be answering the questions?
I'll try.
Okay.
Well, your questions are on our comments and the stuff I talked about.
So I would like to know that some preliminary questions is that the first very pressing question is, since this is pre-application and that nothing has been official yet, will the MCC have another chance at commenting once the application turns in? Or is this
Many chances.
All right.
The next step, if they, when they submit their actual application and it's considered complete as usual, they will send us an early referral, which is what we just commented on the RV park. That's an early referral. It's basically the county, when they get an application in, they send it to DPW, to Geotech, to whoever might want to have an opinion on it, and they send it to us, and we can comment or not. And then they take all that, and then they decide what to do next. And this helps you get, well, whatever, I won't get to that any more deeply, but that's what we're not even at that point yet, because this is just the pre-application. So when the application comes in, then we will get an opportunity to just comment informally, like we are now, on this new application. And I think in this case, we'll probably have Mid-Penn or the planner or both come out and present the project to us. And that may be, I don't know, 1 or 2 meetings. We might want to just hear the presentation, hear from the public, and then confer on a letter or whatever. I don't know how it'll happen, but that would be the next step. Then, and like I say, that's even the earlier referral. But it provides the community, since we have an agenda item on it, provides you an opportunity to get involved in too and to learn about what's going on. And then there'll be
Coastal development permit, environmental impact report, there'll be quite a few changes.
yeah, and they do have a rather odd order for the design review section. But it did say, okay, there's a link to the county. The county has a page on this project too, and there's a description there. And they clearly say that they're going to split this into 2 stages for approvals. First, they're going to approve the LCP zoning amendment at the Coastal Commission. And then they'll go through the project and approve the coastal development permit for the project. So I've never seen this. Usually they have that all together. But so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But somewhere in there, there'll be the environmental document and these other things, and there'll be a period. Usually the environmental document, as it comes out, there's like a 30-day period to comment, for review and comment. And that's certainly a time when we might comment. And then when it finally then it would go to the Planning Commission eventually. And Supervisor Horsley here, when you spoke to him, he promised that those meetings would be held in the evening on the coast side. So
Not this little room, right?
Well, no, but that is a challenge because larger venues are hard to come by. But
They'll find a
if it's the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors, we don't have to worry about it. They have to find the venue. Anyway, where were we? Brandon, you were asking questions.
I think we could go along, with, I think that's all the questions for now.
Any other council have any initial comments or anything?
I have some quick questions for you based on your presentation. So, thank you for the answers about the email that we received from the citizen concerned about the type of housing that would be there. That confused me. I thought, did I miss something? However, in the presentation from the document, or from the information that you got from Mid-Penn, it said that they're going to hold 4 units for possible vouchers.
It said the county requires them to do that.
Okay, and they don't have any plans for additional units that
No, they do.
but they could change their mind on that.
Anything is possible.
There's
Section 8 housing places quite a burden on the owner. So generally, people don't volunteer to do extra Section 8 housing.
It says here, beyond these 4 units, we are not targeting any units towards households with Section 8 vouchers.
Right, but my question is, there's no definitive, they can't. They could if they wanted to. They're
Well,
just saying right now they're not going to.
I would suggest
That's
that,
just,
right,
not
no
inferring
law.
anything. I'm not trying to say they're playing
I
fast,
don't know that much
You
about
could
it.
use your house for Section 8 housing if you wanted.
So they could expand it if they want to, okay. Also, that information that they sent you said that they were gonna set up some way to have a local preference. I know that's a big point of uproar in the sense of, like, we've heard, they can't do that, they can do that, they insist they will. They're saying again that they will. Any idea what that would look like?
Not yet.
They described it conceptually
As?
as they assign a point weighting system for applications, and they can assign extra points for people who live within a certain distance of the housing. They cannot say, you must live, you must work within N miles to live here. That they cannot do.
Is this point system publicly available for viewing, or is this a Mid-Penn
They would
proprietary?
They would
You're
evolve
getting
it.
ahead of yourself.
I'm
We don't know. Maybe
but-
they don't know.
Well, the local preference thing is a big issue, so
Well,
that's why I
well,
was
It
just,
certainly is. We
they
all
brought
agree
it-
on that.
they brought it up again, so they brought it up, and I'm just
Well,
We can
they brought
support
it
it.
up in answer to the comment that this was gonna be a slum and bring gangs and all this stuff. I'm just saying, that they were explaining the demographic as well.
I know, but they opened the door for that question by
So-
mentioning it.
it would
Well,
make sense for you
call
to.
up, what's his name?
Felix, or
No, not
Andrew?
Felix, Andrew, and ask him. They're very accessible.
And then the last, I'm sorry, David. The last question is, now this is a kind of a question that you don't want to hear, but
Well,
but so we're gonna get this zoning changed for lower density here, a matter of course, but it's 2 years plus whenever we get around to it for C1. Why is this zoning so fast track? I'm not saying you have all the, I'm just, do you know? Do you know why this zoning is so fast track?
because this would be part of this project, and the C1 would require a whole big county planning effort.
And
They
this
weren't
is
in the mood.
And this is a single parcel.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't require the approval of the whole community, it's just, I don't think anybody's gonna object to downsizing the density on this parcel. We're not.
That, I don't
We're
think so
not.
either, but it just seems like, wow, zoning changed.
Oh, no, it's just a different process.
And the coastal commission requested it, so it's part of getting the CDP.
Right, there you are. Gotta do what the coastal commission says.
Sometimes.
Is that
Okay.
it?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
it?
it, thank you.
Dan, do you have any questions or early comments before I open public comment?
Just that, I have some, bigger concerns that the letter doesn't really address. The letter is written in a way that soft.
It's too soft?
It's too soft for me.
Well, I would just like to point
I
out.
mean, it's almost like, kind of a acknowledging certain acceptances and
All right, so
the way
that's your
things are
comment.
going, it's okay.
I do have some comments.
Is that it?
Yeah, I also have comments
What?
too.
Just didn't-
So there, I also concur that it's a bit soft, and there's a lot of things I would love to add to the letter.
Such as?
Such as no stoplights, and if I'll go along further when we go to the actual comment section to kind of go more in depth.
Yeah, they're not proposing a traffic signal.
Oh, okay.
They're not. In fact, the only
Yeah,
thing
not yet.
that they actually proposed was this making the northern segment of Carlos one way, which, yeah, I don't even live there, I don't like that idea. But I mean, the purpose of this letter is not to go there. This is just preliminary, and to say, these are the issues, look at these, analyze this. This isn't the time to say we don't want a signal. First of all, there's no project, they haven't asked for a signal, Caltrans probably wouldn't give them a signal, and we're not there yet. Is that how you see it?
And then I'll give further comments when we go to the actual comment section.
Okay, Claire, you have anything to say at this point?
No?
Claire? Nothing? Okay, I'll open public.
Wait, I have a comment.
Oh, sorry.
I was deferring comments to the,
Oh, all right.
because you asked for questions originally. So, obviously, I'm fairly happy with the letter, I reviewed it.
Oh, yes, by the way, thank you. Dave helped me with this letter.
And I'm particularly anxious that as part of the traffic mitigation, Midpen work on public transportation issues. And I've said this to them at every one of their meetings, and it's not being heard, so I'm really happy we're getting that in this letter. We all know that there's no way to increase the capacity of the highway, so getting people out of single or two-person cars is really the only way to reduce traffic. So I find that very important. And in terms of being soft, I want to remind people that if Midpen does not develop this, there are commercial developers waiting to come in, and they may do something worse. So it's in all of our interests If you don't like Mid-Penn, fine, but it's in all of our interest to make this project as positive as possible, because it is extremely unlikely that development on this parcel is going to be completely stopped, unless somebody can come up with $5 or $10 million to buy it, and I don't see that happening. So, yes, make this positive, and that's what I see this letter doing.
I do want to actually make a quick comment. I think it is not really hard hitting, but on the other hand, we're not at the point where we need to do that. As you say, we're taking an initial comment phase with this. I also like the public transportation part. I also would love to see that money put into making that trail work. I think it would make a huge difference. Also, in terms of the Section 8, I doubt that they're going to want to put more Section 8 housing in there just for economic reasons. But even if they did, people who have Section 8 vouchers are not necessarily undesirable tenants, and I wouldn't worry about that a whole lot. That's all I'm saying.
I should, I don't know if I already mentioned this, but the transit, like I say, Mid-Penn folks read this draft, and they called me and quite a little shook up about the comment here about without convenient school and commuter bus service at this location on the highway corridor, this project cannot be justified. And I don't think they had really been thinking about the transit, and they're thinking about it now. Okay, council, so I'm going to open public comment, and the first speaker is JQ. Pardon?
Excuse me.
Oh, if you could, what is this, 9 o'clock? If you could be brief, please.
2 minutes.
That, we would much appreciate it.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
No, I cannot run out of time. Hi, my name is J.Q. Oswine. I'm a resident of Moss Beach. And on behalf of the Resist Density Organization, I'd like to make a few brief comments regarding proposed 71-unit Mid-Penn housing development in Moss Beach. The Resist Density Organization was formed almost 2 years ago following notification by San Mateo County that Mid-Peninsula Housing Corporation intended to develop a large-scale affordable housing complex in Moss Beach. Since that time, we have solicited input from hundreds of Midcoast residents regarding their concerns about this development and its impact on our small community. Their responses have been overwhelmingly negative. In addition, we have attended numerous meetings and reviewed hundreds of historical documents, meeting minutes, regulations, guidelines, proposals for this and other past, present, and future large-scale developments on the unincorporated Midcoast in order to gain perspective on the impact of these developments on our limited coastal resources. Although we agree that there is a need for affordable housing in San Mateo County, the proposed location for such a large development in Moss Beach is inappropriate. We have serious concerns regarding our current infrastructure, traffic congestion, access, and safety for both residents and visitors that would be further exacerbated by such a large and rapid influx of new residents into such a small area. This area is also lacking in community services, public transit, and walkability, forcing new residents to drive. This will result in an increase in overall vehicle miles traveled on the Midcoast, contrary to one of the main tenets of the county's affordable housing efforts to reduce vehicle pollution. We also question the ability of Mid-Penn to legally provide priority placement to those who currently work on the Midcoast. Additionally, we have concerns that the full environmental impact of the proposed development cannot be satisfactorily mitigated given its isolated location and the fixed constraints of our only highway. We are further concerned that our infrastructure issues have not been adequately addressed in relation to the cumulative impact of other approved and proposed large developments on the Midcoast and the overall negative effects of full build-out as currently defined in the LCP. We have submitted documents to today's meeting record to illustrate our concerns in more detail, in addition to providing a list of questions that we would like MCC to consider regarding Mid-Penn's proposed development, and you've already addressed some of those. We also ask that you review our website, resistdensity.org, which provides even more information on each of these issues. Thank you for the opportunity to present these concerns.
Thank you. Ann Rothman?
And I just wanted to comment, so far I've heard, well, Mid-Penn is the best option, but I haven't heard of any others. And I would like to hear about others, and I think it would be nice to open it up to others, because originally, this was set aside for 21% low-income housing, 14% moderate, and the rest was supposed to be market rate. And if you look at the numbers at 148, that means only 30 units were supposed to be low income. That makes a big difference, and it makes a big difference in the demographics. There was actually a study done by Stanford University. There were several people that you might be interested in. This is just a quick synopsis, but one of the things that pointed out was that when you put in this type of housing, the voucher housing that they have, it says in wealthier neighborhoods, they did not see affordable housing as an attractive amenity, and the impact rippled through the area years after construction started. In the high-income areas, you saw a strong housing price drop very locally, and it radiated outward over time. McCade said, this is one of the authors of the study, the price effects remain even after 10 years. And I'm very concerned, and they actually put an economic amount of a loss of $17 million when you put this type of housing in this area. And I'm just saying, to not have any diversity in the housing, to only have low income is concerning. I would like to see the opportunity for teachers, firefighters, many of the other people who have to commute from outside. I mean, the firefighters right in our neighborhood, most of them commute from over the hill. I would like to see them have a place to live. I personally would like to see homes built, lower priced homes. I don't know if that's an opportunity or even townhomes, but offer it to more people, not just income related. So that's why I would like to see some market rates so that our first responders and people who may not economically fit into this mold be able to come and live here. And the middle class, I hate seeing the middle class get squeezed out of everything, and that's exactly what happens. You only provide housing for low income, but what about the rest of the middle income people who can't really afford otherwise to live here or anywhere in the Bay Area? I mean, people are leaving California. The middle class is leaving. And you can't have just haves and have not. It doesn't work. We need everybody. And I just say, please give if there's other developers out there, give them a chance to put their proposal on the table and see really what is the best. Thank you.
Is it appropriate for me to make a comment or not?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Given the figures that Lisa put up on the screen, teachers might very well qualify for this place.
Most coastside teachers would absolutely qualify.
I think that's why they opened it up to 80% average median income in order to capture that.
But how many of those homes were they going to offer at that rate? Was there a number? Because I'm just concerned. I mean, if you offer 1 or 2, is it sort of the same Section 8?
We don't know yet. We haven't even got an actual application. So those kind of details aren't known yet. But that's what they're trying to cover. The next person I have to speak is Sid Young, and that's the last speaker slip I have. So if anyone else wants to speak, can you? Thank you. Go ahead.
Carlisle Ann Young, Seal Cove, Moss Beach. I may go a little over whatever you are limiting, but that's because I have a lot of things to say. First of all, it's insufficient on-site parking. They are estimating 161 parking spaces, or 2.7 per unit out of 71 units. If there were only one driver per household, or shall we say per room in each household.
They're getting one parking space per bedroom.
Yeah, so that might not work. On the 16 one-bedroom units might have 2 adults living in it. It didn't say they were single occupancy one bedrooms. It could be a couple without children or with very small children. So assuming they both have to get to work and there isn't good public transportation, now we're talking 32 cars. On the 37 two-bedrooms, assuming that 2 adults live there and maybe they have a teenager, that's probably 3 cars per 2-bedroom unit, and another at least 74 cars instead of 37. And on the 3-bedroom units, which are 18 proposed, that would be 108 or, 54 cars if it was just a single occupancy, per household, bedroom. So it soon jumps up from 144 parking spaces out of 161 if you just had one per bedroom, and that's 17 guest parking, but then it suddenly jumps to 288. So obviously it's insufficient parking plan for this community, and there's no, at least I didn't see any plan for overflow parking. Then when I was taking the Community Advocates Leadership Academy that Committee for Green Foothills puts on, we went and met at one of the mid-pen units over in, or complexes I should say, over in San Mateo. There was no place to park. They said, oh, just park around in the neighborhood. Well, obviously Barbara Matthewson and I, who were there visiting from the coast, were upset because, we already knew what that was going to mean for this complex. They're not caring about the neighbors nearby. They're just going to have the overflow parking go wherever they can. So that's point number one. Point number two, this complex is too large for the current ingress or egress and poor circulation of traffic as it's designed. Number three, I went to the thing at the El Granada School. It was such a horrible, poor community question and answer session. It was more, well, we'll write your questions down and we'll get back to you. I find that really dismissive, and I really beseech the MCC to ask Mid-Penn to come here like ASAP and answer questions from the community and not just push us off. I really found that very dismissive.
That was run by the county.
I don't care. It wasn't even run by the county. It was run by the Dispute Resolution Center, if you read the little fine print on the
That's the
thing.
county.
It was run by the county,
Well,
contracted to the.
Even so, they should be able to answer our questions instead of keep on pushing us off. That's my point. Mid-coasters in the unincorporated area are getting the short shrift. Name where our community center is. They're going to get a community center, part of the deal. We don't have one. We have to meet in these tiny little rooms where you can't hear because the windows have to be open because it's so hot. When I was at another meeting here, there wasn't even a public bathroom available at night. It was locked. So we need some place, like you said, it's hard to find a place. Well, maybe the county would consider finding the money to buy a $5 million parcel and building us a community center instead of, letting it be squished in with all these 71 houses for medium to low income, affordable people. I don't think there's been any consideration taken on the burden to the neighbors for the traffic. I guess they're talking about sending people down Carlos, but that is a very narrow street. I just can't believe it. There's poor public transportation to stores and jobs. Can't there be a mixture in this complex of seniors and families, or maybe even seniors only, because they would at least not be driving every day, two cars per household to work, if not 3 or more. And also, I think you should try to write into your letter that they mandate a shuttle and a community center for all coastsiders to use. I know Half Moon Bay has a little shuttle that goes maybe as far as the harbor, but there's nothing for us in the Midcoast, not a damn thing. So that's partly my thing. And also, as far as the change of zoning is considered, since we have no community center, why don't we change the zoning to a community center for that parcel and be done with it and not have to worry about what kind of developer comes in there and builds whatever. After all the traffic and mobility studies, and I believe I've attended probably 5 or 6 of them, if not more, no action. So traffic has just gotten worse, and San Mateo County still continues to allow more projects, but no stoplights. I don't want any more stoplights. It's been pretty much said at the last Connect the Coast side, we don't want stoplights, but the last time I went, I think it was the last time they had a presentation at the Harbor Center there, Yacht Club. They had all kinds of stoplights planned, and that just bottlenecks things up even worse. Look at Frenchman's Creek. So I really don't want to see a stoplight at Cypress or at 16th and Carlos. So I would just ask, it again, please ask MidPen to come here as soon as possible to the MCC for a community question and answer session about this project. I think it would be better suited along a transit corridor near transit, ample public ample public facilities such as jobs and shopping. I know if you go anywhere on the other side of the peninsula in Redwood City and Daly City, up on Mission Street, down near the government center in Redwood City, and all up and down the El Camino, they are building huge projects right along the transit corridor. We don't have a transit corridor here. We have gridlock. Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Teresa McLaughlin? And after Teresa, Dolores Silva.
Thank you. So my concern was also about Carlos Street as it comes from the development down to the center of Moss Beach. And what I worry about is pedestrian access. In the letter it mentioned pedestrian and bicycle mobility, and people are focusing on Highway 1. But there's also mobility within the town. And so, it's a pretty steep hill, even on Carlos. But Carlos is your best bet to get from the community center to like the market or the post office, something like that. If you go across Stetson and then down California, you have to be relatively fit to do that. I'd be anxious doing that with a baby carriage or a wheelchair. So when they talk about Carlos Street, it would be really helpful if they could add like a pedestrian or bicycle lane or widen that somehow so that cars and pedestrians can travel that road safely. Thank you.
Dolores?
I'll be quick. I just wanted to clarify a couple of points on the resist density memo that you received today. The concern about the EIR comes from a presentation that MidPen made to the Coastal Commission staff in San Francisco on August 15th. They had a presentation which Renee Ananda shared with us. And in there was a page that implied that they were going to try to tear off the 1985 EIR. And so hence our concern that that's what they're going to try to do because of that, and I can send that to you, that outline. And then the second thing about, that you were confused about with this zoning that we were saying 5 acres or open space in the 6. This comes from the 1985 draft EIR. And there's discussion in there that, before it got to the current zoning, that land had been identified for, as a designated affordable housing site with the intention that 6 acres be developed and 5 acres be left as open space. And that's where that, whether that's valid at all anymore, who knows, but that's where that idea or that supposition about what this 54% really was meant to do. And I know that 148 units, you can't find it, but anyway, I just wanted to clarify that those were items that we didn't pull out of the air. They actually came from something that
That's good to know. I just wanted to say that as far as the EIR goes, I know that Big Wave worked off the previous EIR. They did an addendum, and that was only like 3 years after they had done the EIR. It was for the same parcel, a very similar project. And but this is a different project entirely. It's a different epic. And I was unable to reach the planner today to verify, but I did talk to Lenny Roberts, and she says, no way they can use that old EIR. And
well, I'm glad to hear that, because my husband and I met with Andrew and Felix, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, and we asked him this question. I said, what do you plan to do with the EIR? Are you doing a new EIR, or will you be doing a negative declaration of the old one, or what is it? And they looked at me kind of in a puzzled way and said, well, we haven't decided. And I said, well, this is what you presented to the Coastal Commission, and they were shocked that I had that. But at that point, they're telling me they're not sure which way they're gonna go. So I hope you're right, and I hope Eddie
Well,
is right.
just to say that if I'm wrong and they attempt to do that, you can rest assured the MCC will fight that. But,
Thank you.
Is there a loophole that low-income housing is exempt from having an
No.
EIR?
No. EIRs have a finite lifetime, and 31 years is way past.
I'm glad to hear that.
They can ask for a neg deck, which means they don't need an EIR. It seems unlikely that one would be granted for a project of this size.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But they can always ask.
Right. Stephanie Brannon.
This is really short. So actually, I just had a couple of concrete suggestions on the letter to address the tone issues, which I understand the reason for soft pedaling the tone, especially at this early stage, but like in particular, the last sentence of the second paragraph, I think you could strike that, and because I think it just tends to undermine the points that you make later, and it basically assumes the project is a foregone conclusion. Yeah, it stood out. I didn't understand what we were saying there, and I think that you could just strike it. Similarly, throughout the last sentence, some of our comments here relate to the larger issues, but the hope is that this project will focus community or county attention to address those needs in Moss Beach. Basically, like, yeah, the project should go forward so we can get these larger issues addressed. I don't know. That's one potential reading.
No, it's asking that the county place focus on the issues as a side effect of this project, not to justify the project.
Right.
Right.
But what
These
is the sentence
projects,
doing?
these needs, these hazards, whatever, have been languishing for too long. Way too long. This is an opportunity, if the county wants something, to get them to actually do something there.
Right. But that it's like a tit for tat with the project, right?
No.
Like,
No,
What if
No.
we said the consideration of this project rather than, because you don't want to be the fait accompli, right?
exactly. You got me.
this is just, keep in mind, this is just a planner, and they're gonna use this for their summary of the meeting.
Sure.
And somebody is gonna read this once quickly, and that'll be the end of it.
Sure.
So to agonize over what's the subtle text here, I wouldn't bother, you know? It's
Okay.
like,
Well, I
well-
was speaking to the concerns from the council
Oh,
members that the tone was soft, so I was just giving a suggestion that you could improve the tone with some small changes.
all right, thank you, it is always helpful to have a specific suggestion too.
We're happy to hear your other suggestions.
Just before you refer to project, you refer to project a few times, you could put potential project or proposed project instead. And so that just is like, this is just a proposal at this stage. We're not signing on for anything, which is obvious, but I think small changes like that could improve the tone.
It's in the subject line.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
might want to put in something there about what the Coastal Commission said at the bottom paragraph on page 1, too.
Can you read that?
It says the LCP requires that PUDs be in harmony with the zoning in any adjoining unincorporated area and that no interference with existing or prospective traffic movements on highway results from the PUD. The PUD must not result in overcrowding of the land or congestion of population. And in the one right above it, it does say that, that the recreational uses for residents of the housing complex is specified in PUD 124 zoning. So it pretty much excludes the rest of the community for even using their community center, is my understanding.
So what the Coastal Commission comments are, what they represent, they get the same early referrals that the MCC gets. And Renee Ananda is a coastal program analyst, and she knows our LCP very well. And it's very helpful when she writes these preliminary comments. She is not passing judgment one way or the other. And she is giving a comprehensive list of all the LCP policies that could possibly pertain to this project. And that's very helpful. It's helpful for anybody who wants to fight the project, because you don't have to read the whole LCP and figure it out. You can just look up all those policies and see if there's something there that you can use. It's also helpful for the planning department, because when they do their staff report, they'll know to hit all those items. Otherwise, the Coastal Commission say, well, did you consider this? So it doesn't imply that this proposal is not in compliance. It just says county stuff, these are the things you need to look at and evaluate in your report. That's all it means. Yeah.
It's still not, it's way out of the bounds of what really needs to go in there as far as density, even if it's zoned that way. I'm just saying. I don't think there's anybody in this room that disagrees. 71 units added to the population of Moss Beach with 144 parking spaces is overkill, especially with Big Wave and now a 50-unit RV park and who knows what else.
Whatever this letter ends up saying, I would encourage everybody to write to the planners, make sure everybody's voices gets heard.
When are we going to get the answers back from that dog and pony show last week?
When are you going to get what?
They took all our questions. When are we going to get the answers?
Oh, the
back?
report will be out in, I don't know, within a month.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Density. So currently what they're proposing is the same density as the surrounding neighborhood. And plus it has more restrictions than your neighborhood, like I say, because you can put in second units. They can't. The Midcoast has a growth rate limit of 40 dwelling units per year. And if you say that this project is too big, so this comes through, this doesn't mean all the other 40 get to go through. This means those have to wait. I mean, you're still left with 40 per year. And I understand for affordable housing, they get to do up to 60, but over 3 years, it has to average out to 40. So to pick on one project and say, this private landowner cannot develop their land, and all these other private landowners can, our government just doesn't work that way. I mean, it might not seem, you might not like the result, but I'm sure you would stand up for your own private property rights. And so there has to be another way. And the other way is to buy it, come up with the money and buy it. You just can't take people's land or tell them they can't develop it. This is, with Big Wave, particularly the first version, which was so horrendously inadequate, even then, nobody stepped up to buy that. We're talking wetlands here, prime ag soil wetlands. Post, nobody wanted to buy it. Valamar Bluff, you all know what that looks like, and the sensitive habitat there, nobody stepped up to buy that and save it. The only thing we could accomplish was to get it reduced from 6 houses to 4 and move back from the bluff. So I'm just, from experience, you know, you can't just say, no, we don't want anything. It doesn't work.
I'm saying that they haven't given the coastside community of Moss Beach, Montero, or El Granada anything. They just keep shoving more projects down our throat. Hell be damned how much more traffic it brings. So that has to be brought up somehow. If you want to put that in your letter or soften your letter even more, whatever, but I'm just saying that yes, they have the right, and believe me as a realtor, I know they have their property rights to develop it as they see fit, but the county has the final say over whether or not they approve it. And it's time that our county supervisors take some effort and give the community back something instead of just giving developers little sweetheart deals. That's all I'm saying.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Council members, any further discussion? Brandon?
So I have quite a lot of things to say about this. And so first thing off, yes, I understand that there's this concept property right. However, this property, specific project is being subsidized by millions of dollars of taxpayers' dollars by the county, and the county says, oh, we should have a fair process. Well, if it's going to be a fair process, you would open up the, let the land be bought and developed without, subsidizing and or favoring any particular, any particular developers. Second, I'm not against this project just because it's in our backyard. I mean, to be fair and consistent, I'm also against other projects that drains on colossal taxpayers' money that ruins rural, areas such as the high-speed rail. So, I mean, I'm not just singling this one out. And I would I would like to tell the PEM to see if they can consider other locations that are more suitable and that are located closer to transportation hubs, and other places that are located near grocery stores. This is kind of a food desert here. I mean, yes, we do have Spanglers, yes, but Spanglers is kind of a bit pricey for the demographics that would be in this housing. And so, and also the thing is that once we're still working on the roundabout with the Big Wave project, and I just don't think that we need to use taxpayers' money to pay for, all these effects of traffic that the Mid-Penn project will bring. It's, I mean, already everything Caltrans do is already expensive. We have to pay half of our budget to pay for this consultant for the Mid-Penn project, and so I don't want to pay for any like sidewalks or new like whatever they're going to add. And then also, if this project kind of concentrates a lot. I know someone in the audience talked about concentrates a lot about income, and instead of like what about the veterans, police and fire? Shouldn't they get preferences instead of just saying like concentrate on income? I mean, would be nice to take care of our veterans for once, and so I and I also think that this I mean, like for the roundabout in the Big Wave, I did support it, but that does not mean I support roundabouts just about every section in the Mid-Coast. I mean, that would clog traffic. I mean, that's just, and so I just think that, just having, putting all these, just making all these improvements just because of one project doesn't justify paying for these improvements. And so, and that's one of my first series of comments so far on this project.
Do you think you could support the letter?
Well, if we could add a couple of things such as the residents are concerned about taxpayers' money funding these improvements such as streets. I mean, roundabouts are very expensive. That and then I also recommend that they would focus on veterans, police, fire, teachers, medical, and that they would try to take a look at other areas outside the Mid-Coast.
You realize there's no roundabout proposed with this project?
I understand, but I'm just talking about, roundabout's just an example of what potential things they have to, potential improvements they have to make with Carlos Street or whatever. Because like, I mean, if this project does go through, they would have to make a lot of changes for these street improvements to fit in these projects.
I'm not convinced that would be tax money. It may be required of the developer. So that's something yet to be determined as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that if this project doesn't go forward, we don't need to do anything about the safety issues at Carlos?
No, I'm just saying that the project is more of a determination. Like, I mean, if we say like we could, like for example, like rearranging the bus stops, like for this project would be more of an influence of what specific improvements need to take place instead of having a larger overview of if the project wasn't there.
Anything else?
No, not yet.
Claire? Dave? Chris?
Well, I want to thank Brandon for taking over my place as the talker of the council. Thank you, Brandon. Now I can just,
I'm the defendant of the coastside taxpayers.
no, I could just slide into, like, I got two quick things to say. Per comments that, I support the letter and what it says. Per comments that it's soft, I understand those comments, but I guess I would just say that that was my initial feeling too, but in looking at this as a filtering process, this is another, if you recall back in February, I need to put my glass on, I can see people. In February of this year, it was just kind of Mid-Penn's coming and they're introducing themselves to the community. We had lots of comments and thoughts and concerns about how many units and stuff. Well, that wasn't the time to be concerned about that. And so we filtered it down, okay? And now we've got a proposal that we don't have any design drawings or anything in terms of blueprints or elevations or whatnot, drainage plan, these types of things. But we've got a proposal that we can make comments on. And so we've made comments on those things. And Brandon, I think, asked, and I was heartened to hear that we will have many opportunities to further comment as we have more specific things to further comment on. So I understand the sentiment that it's soft, but I think that you're anticipating it as for a different purpose than the purpose of this letter. So I support what this letter says, and I look forward to the opportunity to make specific comments in the future. And I will reveal my personal feeling, which is going forward when the opportunity is right, I want to say that I cannot support this project until there is significant traffic mitigation. And I mean significant traffic mitigation, and I would like to see that done before one shovel of earth is turned in the actual housing project. So that's my personal feeling on that, but I'm not advocating that be put in this letter because this letter is not the vehicle for that statement, and I look forward to the opportunity to make that statement in the letter because I feel very seriously about it. The only suggestion I would make on this particular letter is I liked what Stephanie said. Per the word proposed, in two instances being placed in these first two paragraphs, which is essentially a preamble. Once we get to the highlighted, the bolded sections, development, there it would be understood that the term "the project," if this was a legal document, the first and the proposed project, parentheses, quotation mark, the project. So we understand that in the body of the letter. It is in the subject line. It's also in the first sentence of the first body paragraph. And I would just agree with Stephanie and propose that the word proposed be placed in the first sentence of the second paragraph and the last sentence of the second paragraph. Many of the community concerns regarding this proposed project, but the hope is that this proposed project will focus. I think it's a minor change. It does not change the meaning that we're trying to put in this letter. It does address community feelings about this project, and I think it is appropriate for a preamble. And other than that, suggested change, I support this letter.
Dan?
Yes, so I'm going to just come out and say that, I don't believe that this project is compatible with the intersection of Carlos and Highway 1.
As it currently exists, or ever.
It's not, sure, they could make it compatible, but then now you have to weigh, how is that fair to the rest, everybody else that uses the road, just for one development? That's just not. Resist density, I watched the video today, they did an excellent job of kind of, just emphasizing and clearly acknowledging establishing that there is a serious problem here. Can't be overlooked. I want to echo Sid Young's comments. I do believe that the county should acknowledge that they have a responsibility to not add to what is an already dangerous situation. It would be false to say adding any cars into that intersection would not make it more dangerous. They also, I believe, have a responsibility to weigh the overall impact on everybody in the coast side using Highway 1. So this letter is a step in the process. And the further along we go through the process, the less I think the community can make a difference. So I think it is important. I'd like to see some changes to the letter. Under development density, the MCC consistently advocated the need to significantly reduce Midcoast residential build-outs. You know, by adding that they reduced it implies, in my opinion, that it's acceptable. The reduction is acceptable. And so I don't think it needs to be there. I think it sends a wrong message. As far as, and then the last sentence of development density, I think it's not important. Future site density will not be increased. I think we could strike that, just have it clearly say addition of second units are not allowed in multifamily housing. Just stop it there. By saying future site density will not increase.
We can leave the whole sentence out. Would you like that?
Pardon?
We can leave that sentence out.
The whole sentence?
Yeah,
It'd be fine.
Well, I think,
I'm fine with that.
It was explanatory more to the community than
Right,
it
it was
was
to
to the
explain
planner or
this
the
about
project.
second units, right. We
well,
can
first
leave
of all,
that out.
there's gonna be no room for, and it's not even possible.
It's got tons of extra room.
May I propose we leave out the last sentence under development density? Thank you. All right, that's done.
I'm okay with
Dan, continue, I didn't need to know.
Everything else, public transit, mobility, I'm not gonna ask for any changes.
Claire?
Dan, you brought up the video that you saw today. That's the one with the cars driving back and forth on Highway 1?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done and illustrative of the problem. I'm wondering if that could be made available with some sort of link from our website, or if that would be appropriate. Some way I'd like to see more people be
It's
able to
on the
see it.
resist density website.
You know, okay, and we have a link to resist density. Yeah. Okay.
By the way, Mike Scheller agreed to make that video as part of the record for this.
Okay.
I think it should be a video that's very easy for anybody that goes to Midcoast Community Council to see, and not to expect that they're gonna go to another website and find it easy. Is it on the, I don't know if it's on the homepage of, is it on the front page?
I personally do not think it belongs on our website. It implies we endorse it, and I have issues with it.
It's information that the community deserves.
And it's on the resist density website, anybody can find it.
So you guys have a link to the resist density website on your page?
I don't
I thought
know.
we did.
I
Yes,
don't
I think
know.
we do.
We
It's
certainly
on
have
the,
linked to documents that are on your website.
The right
We
side of
mentioned
the
your
page.
We
name
have,
in a number of places.
we have everything they said here, it's in our minutes. In fact, they even quote our minutes, I guess we captured it right. A summary back in February 2016 of what y'all said, you know? And we have the videos, and, you know, when you had the conversation with Don Horsley, I guess, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to link to risk density because I have a deep attachment to the absolute facts, not shaded in any way, just, and the source document there. And I want to inform the community and make sure I have all the facts so that they can make their own decision. We don't, on our website, we're not, maybe this isn't a completely true statement, but we're not advocating kill this project. We're saying, here's the project, here's the plans, here's our comments. Now, our comments may have a flavor to it, but we're not linking to people who are advocating. It's just, I
Either
don't.
for or against projects.
Either way, it's,
Point of order, you're discussing stuff that's not on the agenda, you should call the question, because it's getting late.
it is. Are you all ready to call the question? Thank you, Bill. Oh, so the motion, we don't know, do we have, we had a motion, but we have amended the letter, we deleted the last sentence about the second units.
What about the
And
proposal?
we'll add several proposals,
So-
just the
so-
various ways.
Yeah.
of
Two
the letter.
proposals.
If we add
Yeah, we just-
proposed project everywhere project is, the
They
board,
might
it
go
just
to
becomes
another page.
unwieldy.
Just in the second
That's
paragraph.
what, that
If we only
wasn't,
do it in two places, it looks really weird compared to the rest. I would rather not see that.
And we
Yeah,
could
we started
add-
off, we introduced the highway safety mobility study, thereafter it's called that, you know, it's like, and we often do that with Midcoast Community Council, then we'll call it MCC, I mean, you don't repeat that all the way through, it's not gonna make any difference, really.
And could we add that, that veterans, police, fire, teachers get preferences?
No, I don't want, I mean, I wouldn't want it.
I would not vote for that.
I don't want that either.
They've already said they would like those people to be at this site. Horsley has said that, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask for it.
So can we make an amendment to put those two proposed in there and vote on it?
You can always ask for an amendment, and you can get a second, and then we can vote on the amendment.
So what's your amendment, Brandon?
Maybe we could, add that,
Say, I move we add,
the amendment that we add that, they, do not, that they promise not to, add, sidewalks, street lights, to this project.
you know that won't work.
All right.
The county is the one that controls that.
I thought you wanted an amendment about veterans and firemen.
Oh, forget about that.
Okay, so no amendment, so we're back with, deleting the one sentence and, move the letter be approved.
I think
I-
Claire and Chris.
I propose that we add the word proposed in the two places I mentioned earlier, the first sentence in the second paragraph and the last sentence in the second paragraph.
A second.
All right, send me where you want your proposed words. And,
Well, we should vote on that. It was a proposed amendment, seconded.
oh, all right. So, the motion, so what do, I'm sorry, I'm not up on this. So we vote on the amendment
We're
first?
voting on the amendment. Yes.
So the amendment is to add several extra proposed.
Two.
Two extra
Two
proposed, there's
proposed.
already three. And, all in favor of adding more proposed to the letter?
Two specific proposed.
3, 4. That gets it. So
14.
send me all your proposed, and I'll put them in the letter. Now we're back to
Voting on the
approve the
letter
letter.
itself.
This is earth-shakingly important. So, to approve the letter,
As amended.
as amended, all in favor?
Wait a second. The striking of the last sentence,
That's already gone.
We didn't vote on it.
the second the second sentence,
We took
Future
we took a
site
consensus
density
vote
will
on
not
that.
be increased by additional units. We deleted that by consensus.
that's the last sentence of the development density
Yes,
paragraph.
exactly.
I'm
That's
asking
gone.
about the second sentence.
You want to delete the second sentence?
It implies that, I mean,
No,
I guess it's
I don't know
factual,
about
but
that.
it, I don't know, it just sends a, it implies that it's substantially reduced and that it's acceptable to us and the community.
All right, so do I understand correctly? You move that we delete the sentence, the 71-unit project does reduce the overall number of units on this project. Oh, here, I've got a compromise for you. How about this? We take out the word does. So then it just says,
The
71
71
unit
unit
project-
proposed project reduces.
reduces the overall number. And that's
proposed
just
there.
a statement of fact.
Well, it still implies that
No, it's just a
It's sig-
statement of fact.
doesn't really change much.
Oh, I think it changes the tone entirely. Sorry, I'm authoring it, and I added that word in later, and I thought it made more punch, so I'm taking it out, so it's not so I see the significance of leaving that word out. I'm not trying to be facetious.
Okay, do you want to make another amendment, or do you want to accept that?
So what we've got here now is the 71-unit proposed project reduces the overall number of units on this parcel to less than half. It's a clear statement of fact.
We don't need proposed in there.
Yeah.
Oh, but Chris wants it.
No, just those two.
You
Just
voted
those-
for it.
Just those two in the second paragraph.
I'm not sure what the disconnect here is.
Okay, can we vote? Can we approve this letter, please, as amended? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you.
1, 2, only 2.
2 additional words, 1 removed and 1 struck sentence.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Can we,
9:50, where's my big sheet? Council activity. Anybody have anything to report?
I went to the Rotocare open house, and they are trying to revitalize that clinic with more of an educational component.
Okay.
Nope.
What date was that?
That was
That
September
was,
21st,
okay,
Thursday.
thank you.
Yep.
Next, anybody?
We should report on today's meeting.
You can.
Okay. Lisa and I attended a meeting with Caltrans, county representatives, county consultants, Transportation Authority, Caltrans in Oakland today on the Gray Whale Cove project. Was the first meeting of almost all the interested parties with a very, very preliminary schedule. It got a lot of issues on the table. It looks like construction could be late this year at the very earliest, might be in winter or spring of next year. Still very preliminary. And then one very important issue for some of the community came up during this meeting. The Caltrans traffic safety engineer at the meeting said she did not believe the crossing would be safe with just the alternative 1 flashing beacons. She was very concerned about pedestrian safety.
Should talk about tunnels?
Let me get to it. She and I and Ann Solman from DPW talked about that at the end of the meeting, and it may be necessary to revise to alternative 1, which is the hybrid beacon.
No, that's 2.
I'm sorry, backwards.
Yeah.
May be necessary to revise it to the hybrid beacon, which, as part of the hybrid beacon, and they're putting these on El Camino, people want to look at them, they go from completely black, you press the button, they flash yellow, steady yellow, just like a traffic signal, steady red, which means cars are required to stop, just like any red signal, and then it goes to a flashing red, which means cars have to stop and then can proceed, just like any flashing red. It's treated like a stop sign. That is clear, a lot of the community do not want that, but it's sounding like it might be difficult to get the project approved without it. Also during the discussion, the Caltrans people themselves brought up the question, although Lisa and I were prepared to, why weren't we considering an overcrossing? And there was some back and forth on that, including the cost and the difficulties of the terrain. Caltrans people wanted to make extremely clear that Caltrans does not have a policy that says they will not do overcrossings. Undercrossings, they did not, we asked the question during that discussion, they did not specifically say undercrossings, but there was some earlier back and forth that implied that it is always on the table.
You reported that they said it's always going to be off the table. Now
No. Caltrans wanted us to make clear to the public that it was not Caltrans' policy to oppose overcrossings.
To oppose overcrossing.
It was not their policy to oppose overcrossing. In other words,
Right, but-
they consider overcrossings.
And undercrossings?
That was not specifically.
It's becoming a gray area. When 2 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, it was clearly they do not build them anymore, even though they gave La Cochita a $12 million undercrossing in
So that
2014.
statement was made by somebody, not me, not Caltrans, I think it might
Well,
have been Dan.
Supervisor Horsley made
Might
a
have been
statement
Supervisor Horsley.
in this room.
I cannot address what Supervisor Horsley said or why he said it. I am reporting to the council and the community that Caltrans wanted to make clear that they do not automatically oppose those projects.
On the beacon, I have to say that it was on the paper, it was on the plan, the light at the south portal of the tunnel was going to be a beacon the whole time, and the last minute, they changed it to a green, yellow, red light.
That was done for the left turn. But it's a similar issue.
So, you know, whatever they say, anything can go. They can change it, anything at the last minute. Exactly.
So this was the very, very first meeting. We will continue, we, the council representatives, will continue to be invited to these meetings. I will report back as things happen. But I did want to give people a heads up that a change in the project from what everybody wanted might be coming. Might, not.
In our lifetime.
Anybody else have something?
Yes, I got a ton of stuff, since we didn't get to do it the last time. All right, on August 25th, the Coastside Design Review Committee had the first training in at least 5 years. I've been on the committee for 5 years. We've never had any kind of formal training or any training documents or anything like that. Just kind of like figure it out. But the last couple of years, the outgoing chair, Beverly Garrity, and the current chair, Stuart Brunow, have really tightened up the ship. So we had this extensive training with an extensive binder of documents that we went through. So I believe now we're almost fully staffed at CDRC, except for the 2 Miramar positions. We're fully staffed, and now that staff is fully trained. So I am really proud of the direction that Design Review's been heading in the last couple of years. And this kind of formal training is a big step. I mean, to just get dumped into it and you don't even know what you're doing when people's money and property is on the line is irresponsible. So I'm proud of the county for doing that. On August 31st, Supervisors Horsley and Groom and I interviewed a candidate for the Princeton Community Representative position, and we recommended her for appointment. She had a lot of community development and PR experience. I'm sorry.
Does she live there?
No, she does not, but CDRC has made an allowance that because there's only like 5 residences in Princeton, that Princeton is an at-large community in which anybody that lives in any of the other Midcoast communities could serve as the Princeton representative. On September 6th, September 7th, and September 14th, I attended the public outreach meetings for the San Mateo County Parks Dog Management Committee. There was one in Burlingame, one in Redwood City, and one in Pacifica. The 2 meetings over the hill combined had less than double digits attendance combined. The one in Pacifica had about 25 people. So Parks and Rec Chair Neil Mariles, who's a former MCC member and Coastside resident, his feeling is that the lack of public participation in this means that people are generally on board with the proposed policies. I want to believe that, but on the other hand, I've been to enough of these things where the policies then put into place and all of a sudden people are screaming bloody murder. This was the time to come and have your input. So, and the fact that there was 25 at Pacifica and less than 10 combined for the 2 Bayside meetings, to me is an indication that this is a bigger issue over here than it is over there.
They have dog parks over there.
They do.
And over here, there's unrestricted, everything. So why don't they have a meeting on the coast side?
Well, they have. We had a meeting here for the MCC agenda, yes. They had a meeting at Pacifica. They had meetings in June that were preliminary meetings, give your open-ended input. This is, we've got 10 specific policies, come and tell us what we missed, what we did wrong. And so that's me. We got over 300 electronic responses. But, you know, we put over a year of work into this, and you want to see people come out, whether they agree or not. We're trying to do the right thing here, give us some feedback. So it was disappointing, the turnout. For me, Neil saw it a different way.
You're gonna go through with it, no worries.
Well,
Read the policy, it's very, it's just a policy.
it's a general policy statement. Generally, we're thinking about expanding dog access to the park. And then there's 10 sub-policies that are, how would that look? What are the specific things? And those will be recommended to the Parks and Rec Commission, and they will decide on it and then decide to recommend it to the Board of Supervisors. Currently, dogs are not allowed in county parks. They're not allowed. Forget leash, they are not allowed except for some grandfathered parks. So the county's doing a good thing. They're looking to open that up a little bit, give people more opportunities. Let's see, on September 14th, the Coastside Design Review Committee met and the Valimar Bluffs project was reviewed and it was continued to October 12th. So it will be back at CDRC again on October 12th. And the other meetings, other people reported on. So thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else have anything to report? Okay. Shall we adjourn? Oh, just a reminder, so we get applications for the MCC vacancy where we're planning to have interviews, applicant interviews here on the October 25th.
Is that going to be like a candidate forum where they're sitting at a table, or how do you envision that?
Depends how many applicants there are.
Right.
We'll see we'll see.
Okay.
Brandon?
So with that same meeting, would we be choosing which one we recommend?
We could do it then, or we could do it the following
And
meeting.
would it be in an open setting or a closed setting?
We
where
have to
right-
vote in public.
Okay.
We can't do anything except in a public meeting.
Got it.
It's awkward, but that's how it is.
Yeah. Especially if they're there, you know.
Exactly.
It was awkward the last time, I felt a little uncomfortable running it.
I felt uncomfortable being that.
Okay, so we shall adjourn. Thank you. 10:01, I thought you.